to Sue. Gives it up. Gives it Sue. Lays it in.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
No good. Arizona with a prayer that will not go. And the Tigers of Princeton growl their way into round 2.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Noel. He sizes up Shigwe. Got him! A 3!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Clark in a straight jack. Oh, he threw it away. Ping, Padis.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
The lob, and that will do it. Do you believe it? For just the second time ever, a 16 beats a 1.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, here we go, a new week, and it is Monday, March the 20th, into the second week of the NCAA tournament. The Sweet 16 is set, the Big 12 with Texas and Kansas State still alive. Kansas a number 1 seed, Baylor a number 4 seed. Late yesterday, TCU out in the tournament, and so it's Kansas State and Texas right now among the Sweet 16. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, we have a lot to get to today, including the Sweet 16. Baylor football spring drill starting. They'll start to have media opportunities tomorrow. A couple of snippets from ESPN and looming, I guess you could say, layoffs and firings, whatever you want to say is the right way. And then also we're going to check in with people who discuss and cover Texas, Craig Way, and Houston, Joseph Duarte. They'll be a part of the show. And Mark Vidal with some truth serum on Baylor's season that ended with a team that looked better to me in Creighton ending their season last night. Also, notes on John Calipari, Rick Pitino, Ed Cooley, much to get to, and also audio from Keontae George after the game against Creighton, plus so much more to get to. We have a guest at 3:15, so let's go. Sweet 16. Baylor season's over. KU over. That was a shock a little bit on Saturday. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, your thoughts about the Sweet 16?
Yeah, Baylor from the jump really just didn't seem like that was a great matchup for them. I do think, though, that, when you rely on high percentage shooting and you're not getting it, then they're not going to win many games. And Creighton hit 80 before they did, and that's been their MO all year. When they lose, they give up about 80 points. Or they're under 80. And every time they did, they were. So I think that, this Baylor team was a bunch of really good players. I just think that maybe it was, looking back on it, Jack and I and Garrett were talking about this before the show, it just wasn't the right mix that they needed. Like, you could take maybe 3 or 4 of those guys and put them on different Baylor teams and they would fit, but not maybe all together. And so at least as far as, reaching the plateaus that people expect Baylor to reach now, Kansas was shocking, especially since they had Arkansas on the ropes in the middle of the second half. And then just Arkansas, nibbled away, but got back and won that game.
That's what they played. Arkansas plays like their coach, emotional, up and down, a roller coaster, but they were better than Kansas when it mattered down the stretch in that game. Craig?
Credit to Arkansas. The SEC has, I think, an opportunity for bragging rights at the end of this entire thing. I think the Big 12, a lot of people poking at the, best conference tag or the toughest conference or whatever. I think it's much more the toughest conference than probably the best conference. I think that's the way it's played out because I don't think you can deny the 1 through 10 how difficult that was for teams. But could it have happened and been even more close because there aren't necessarily a couple of super elite teams as opposed to the SEC where maybe it's not as thorough from top to bottom, but they have 2 or 3 that are really good as opposed to just pretty good, if that makes sense. I think we're starting to see that maybe bear out a little bit as far as the storylines go. And Arkansas is a really fun, athletic, good team. It's kind of hard to watch. Was it Anthony Black, knowing that Baylor recruited him? He was a legacy guy, and certainly to see Arkansas keep moving on and
a team Baylor beat.
And a team that Baylor beat, and then also to see a guy, obviously they wanted, but good for him, good for his family, and good for the Razorbacks. But, yeah, the SEC has looked really good with their team still remaining. And, the Big East obviously has made a dent as well. And, the Big 12 is, just hanging on right now with K-State and Texas. Maybe not what was expected, but certainly those two teams have carried the banner well. Awesome to see Tang get in the Sweet 16, and Texas might go win this whole dang thing. They really are stinking good. So that's entirely possible. So we'll see, because you might only have two in the Sweet 16, but you might have the one that's standing tall at the very end, and that's ultimately what matters and what people will remember. As far as Baylor goes, I don't think anybody who was paying attention was all that shocked by them bowing out in the round of 32. We knew that getting to the Sweet 16 would be a tough task because of the way the bracket laid out, and knowing that Creighton wasn't necessarily a game, despite being a lower seed, that you were going to be favored in. And sure enough, I don't think most people had them favored by the time that game rolled around. And I think that was evident pretty much wherever you looked, from prognosticators, from odds to whatever, just the feel. I think after that first round win over UC Santa Barbara, you just didn't feel like this was going to be a team that was always going to just be, finding horseshoes on their path, and that, all along, this was a team that if they weren't shooting well and they were playing their typical defense, it was going to be hard to win games. And they got not only a double bad break on the shooting, but they played bad defense. And on the offensive side, with that double bad break, they couldn't make a shot and Creighton couldn't miss a shot. That's a triple whammy. No defense, no points, and the other team can't miss. And you are where you are right now, which is already back in Waco, and now trying to figure out how you move forward, knowing full well that Keontae George and Adam Flagler and there's others to be determined, and those guys are still unofficial, but I feel confident in saying Keontae George will be in the NBA next year. But now you turn your eyes towards next year, and it's going to be a very interesting offseason.
Yeah, and Keontae, if he plays like he did the last few games, which was not at an elite level. The G League, I'm not saying that flippantly. That's hard. We've seen great guards from Baylor. Where's Maceo Teague right now? Hell of a player. Jared Butler signed late in the NBA season. Obviously, Davion Mitchell continues to play well. And those were three great college guards. They were with Maceo Teague, Davion Mitchell, and also Jared Butler. Now, here is audio. Now, let's first go to the Sweet 16 graphic, Garrett. These are the teams left in the Sweet 16 and their records against whoever's left in the Sweet 16. Down at the bottom, Sean Farnham, by the way, Florida Atlantic, UCLA, and Miami have not played against anyone that's still left among the 16.
Or Princeton.
Princeton. Tennessee, unbeaten. Gonzaga, 3-1. Xavier and Texas are about to meet. That could be just as good as it gets. Alabama played 7 games against those who are left. Kansas State, there you see the list on down. Creighton 3-4. Houston has not played but 1 game against those inside the top or Sweet 16. And Michigan State 0-2, but Izzo's got them playing. And Izzo and Kansas State, Michigan State coming up in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I'm actually Kansas State, Michigan State might be the game I'm looking forward to the most. I'm very curious about that, especially like when you've got a new head coach in Jerome Tang playing a legend in Tom Izzo. And he just took one down in John Calipari. In what I thought, especially the last 3 minutes of that game, Kansas State was able to put some distance between it, where Kentucky was, kind of playing a little desperate, which, you don't see from Kentucky teams all that often, but they were, last couple minutes, playing a little bit desperate, and Marquise Noel was so fantastic.
You mean the little kid?
The little guy? The little guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing, and I just saw Jareem Dowling firing off a tweet at John Calipari for what he said in the post game, and was he being disrespectful? Perhaps he should know Noel's name, you would think, but a lot of K-State fans are not happy about that.
The back of his jersey ran past you a crap ton there,
bunch.
John. So you
yeah.
might.
And he was also the one with the ball in his hands
Yeah.
for about 85% of the possession for Kansas State.
Yeah, and really all I've seen was Kentucky fans upset about Jerome Tang not bowing
Absolutely.
down and kissing the ring
Yeah.
of, Calipari and the Wildcats, blue blood history. But, I think that, that's one of those where you look at it the way you want to look at it. They definitely blew Tang's comments out of proportion. If you want to look at Calipari's comments and take those a certain way, that's fine too. But, final score is all that matters, and that's something that was in K-State's favor, so congrats to the Cats.
Here is Jerome Tang. This was after the game, responded. This is Kellis Robinette. He covers K-State. When he was asked about beating a traditional power like Kentucky, tradition does not help you if you don't get out on the floor and play with dudes. We have had more dudes than they did today. That's what that was. He also then referred to the fact that blue blood and K-State's got their history, and everyone melted down if you're a Kentucky fan. But here's a John Calipari stat. The guy's a hell of a coach. John Calipari and Kentucky have one NCAA tournament win in the last 3 years, which for most programs would be just fine. Since 2015 in the Final Four, 10 tournament wins, 7 complete seasons, 2 Elite Eights, 3 first weekend exits, and 1 missed tournament. Now, a lot of success in there, but the other part about being Kentucky or Kansas or even Duke or North Carolina, and things do change up and down, that is not what he's getting that kind of money for. I like him. I do. But there is a little bit of doubt. I mean, Bill Self, who was, hospitalized, there are those who, what the hell? I mean, why'd you have to do that right before the tournament? And I mean, just watching a little bit of that. I mean, the guy was hospitalized and was in a condition where he couldn't coach. He obviously wishes he could have been there for the Jayhawks.
Yeah, I mean, that mattered. I mean, that definitely mattered. You don't have your head coach. I mean, he's a legend and a Hall of Famer for a reason. And I think that maybe this is, I don't know of many other examples of guys missing time. I don't know. There's probably, pockets here and there where a legendary coach had a health issue to take care of, but I don't know. I don't recall it to this extent, this timing-wise, in March Madness with Bill Self, and that certainly hurt Kansas, no doubt about it. But, what a showing from, the other half of the Sunflower State with Tang and company, and what a run it's been to get in the Sweet 16 in year number 1.
All right, now, Keontae George walks off the court after the loss to Creighton. Everyone knows that most likely a one-and-done, and most likely would be drafted at lottery or in that neighborhood. Here is Keontae. This is audio from Darby Brown from KWTX after the game.
Keontae, walking off the court, you're walking with Coach Brooks. Just what was going through your mind?
Coach AB, he recruited me since I was 12. And, just to have, not a lot of players can have a type of relationship with an assistant coach. And, we got our ups and downs, but, in the end, it was all for the greater good. So, like I said before, I could have took the blue blood route, but, I decided to come here in a small city in Waco and, kind of grind it out the whole year. And, because of, Coach AB, he was, he tested me each and every day. And, it's just, not a lot of programs have, that type of thing going around. So, I'm just blessed that I was able to, make this type of decision to have that relationship, with Coach AB.
Now, there was part of what Keontae said also was the fact that he could have gone to a blue blood, but he went to Baylor. And a lot of people took that as an insult because of Baylor winning the national title a couple of years ago. I think everyone, in my opinion, is a little bit sensitive to that. I understand how good Baylor's been for the last decade or so. Chuck Cooperstein responded on my timeline by saying the difference is that Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina, and maybe 1 or 2 others have done this for 45 or 50 years, and somebody responded to that. Nobody cares about that anymore. Everybody cares about who you are now. The NIL money changes all of that, but it was just a good back and forth discussion. Bottom line is Keontae George came to Baylor because currently they're among the best programs despite the loss to Creighton on Sunday night.
Before we get a guest on, I'll explain it this way. So Baylor, when it comes to basketball success, and really football too, when they have it, they are new money, which is fine. Money's money, but there is old money, and that's what Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, UCLA, they're old generational wealth. Like you can you can take that, like if you were looking at people who were wealthy, you could take it back to the Vanderbilts or something. They're Mark Cuban. They made their own billions. And old money doesn't understand new money or like it, and new money vice versa, but you're new money. And just because you are, and it's not bad, but you're not old money yet.
Yeah, or the term or whatever, blue blood. We have a couple of other college basketball notes to get to, and then Andy Zimbalist is our guest coming up here in just a second.
One of the dumbest things people could possibly start to try to pick apart, honestly. I mean, he's sitting there clearly crying, trying to hold it together. He's, 18 years old, give or take, and they just lost a tough basketball game. I mean, whatever he said, it was not anything to really be up in arms about, but, I mean, God forbid the internet not, have something to get even more upset about. I just nothing harmful there at all.
Rick Pitino to St. John's, Ed Cooley headed to Georgetown. Those are a couple of the other basketball stories, of course, of interest. And even saw a note with Mike Bray might be getting back into coaching at USF with the Bulls. We're now joined by Andy Zimbalist, sports economist and author of numerous books on a lot of things, college and, of course, pro, and the economy and what we see now, the economics. Andy, thanks for your time. I know it's hard to get you on a show, and we appreciate you giving us that time. What is your thought process right now of what you see when it comes to college athletics and the media deals and the realignment and the restructuring and all the things that are going on right now?
I think we're at an inflection point, and one of the roads is a road to ruin. Looked at, first of all, from a financial point of view, if you look at the NCAA statistics for the last pre-COVID year, the median athletic program in FBS was losing just under $20 million a year. Since that point in time, the situation has gotten much worse, in part because of the pandemic, but that effect will go away. But the other thing that's happening is that the NIL market has exploded. It's not simply these days paying a student athlete to promote a product either on social media or in the newspapers. It's not just that. It's putting together money from boosters to attract people to come to the school. Now, whether you like that or not, from a financial point of view, what it means is that money that used to go from boosters to the athletics department so they can buy seats on the 50-yard line, so donations and also corporate sponsorships that used to go directly to the athletics department, they're now going to the players. Now, again, on moral or ethical grounds, you might think that that's proper, but if you think about it economically, the typical FBS school got $9 million a year from corporate sponsorships, $19 million a year from donations. Good chunks of those monies are not going to the athletic department anymore. So a $20 million deficit, just by that fact alone, can go up to $30 million and more. Then there are lots of other factors that are taking hold. As individual schools see their financial situation getting worse and worse, and of course there are some litigations still outstanding, such as in the Johnson case and the House case, that could declare student athletes to be employees and could declare that they have a right to some of the television money. Again, whether you like that morally or not, that's going to be another financial strain on these departments. And so these departments, almost all of them, with very, very few exceptions in FBS and in Power 5, they're losing increasing amounts of money, and they get desperate. What do they do when they get desperate? Well, one of the things they do is they look to get into a richer conference. And so you have the reshuffling of chairs happening all over again, musical chairs for the conferences and the schools. And what happens as a consequence of that? Well, in the short run, it looks like schools like UCLA and USC, they're going to get a bigger chunk of a media contract out with the Big Ten. That's good for them. Maybe Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC, that's good for them. But what happens to the Big 12, and what happens to the ACC, and what happens to the Pac-12 when some of their most appealing teams, and it usually is the most appealing teams, to get wooed away by another conference? Well, those conferences, like the Pac-12 and like ACC and like Big 12, they become more impecunious. They have more and more financial issues. The remaining schools then try to realign themselves maybe joining together the Big 12 and the ACC or whatever the new match might be. But you get a situation of increasing chaos. And if you're ESPN or you're some other media outlet and you're looking at this, what do you notice? You notice that a conference like the Pac-12 had already been going downhill for a variety of reasons, already had been getting lower attendance at the games and lower ratings, and ESPN was losing interest in giving them $31 million a year per team. But then on top of all of that, we see that USC and UCLA are leaving the Pac-12. And so where does that leave George Kliavkoff, the head of the Pac-12? It's a tremendous mess. And you know, the fundamental raison d'etre, the fundamental characteristic of college sports, whether you like it morally or not, it's being challenged. And the nature of the sport and the way fans relate to it is going to change. And as the financial pressures keep up and this conference realignment keeps on happening, one of the things that schools are going to be tempted to do is to drop the Olympic sports or the non-revenue sports. We happen to have an Olympic system in this country that's totally dependent on athlete development in the colleges, unlike every other country in the world. So basically, it's a big mess. I could go on and on, but I've talked long enough.
Well, Andy, what is the winning formula economically for them, if such a formula exists?
The winning formula for college sports?
Yes.
Well, I think the winning formula is, first of all, let us recognize that college athletes have been exploited for too long, and it's particularly hit athletes of color, and that needs to be rectified. The way I would rectify it is I provide increasing support for a robust education. Graduation rates are much, much too low amongst athletes in the big-time sports. And I provide medical care, which they're not getting right now. Only 1% of NCAA revenues, 1% goes to supporting medical care for athletes. They should be getting all of their medical care paid when they're in school. They should get coverage for any accident while they're in school going forward. And they should have loss of income insurance bought for them by the program. I would do all of that and maintain their relationship as students rather than convert them into employees. We can do a lot better for this. You know, over 98% college men's basketball and football players never play a single game in the NBA and NFL. Maybe a lot of them want to. Maybe a lot have that dream. But over 98% never play a single game. If we're going to do justice for those students, what we have to do is equip them for the rest of their lives outside of the NBA and the NFL. And that means giving them a good education and protecting their bodies if they get hurt at school.
Andy, do you feel like there is too much? I mean, what do you feel like the destination is for the Big Ten and the SEC eventually? I mean, they're well on their way, as you pointed out. The others are just simply trying to figure out their way and play catch-up as best they can. But do you think that's the pathway the Big Ten and SEC appear to be on right now, sort of going those routes, but also creating something that maybe we haven't quite seen before in quote-unquote college athletics?
I think that's right. You know, the average Major League Baseball team spends over $30 million a year on its minor league system, on developing its minor leaguers. How much does the NFL spend? Zero.
Right.
The NBA spends a little bit, a couple of $1 million maybe on their G League. But basically, the NFL and the NBA get a free ride. And that shouldn't be the way it is. There should be some subsidies going to help support the system. Now, when you start talking about two leagues are going to break off, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to break off, they're each going to have 14 to 16 franchises. Lo and behold, at the end of the day, you're going to have 30 franchises playing college sports that are playing at the very top level. And you could, if you think about them, maybe converting themselves into minor league franchises for the 30 pro teams that there are in the NFL 32. Then some of that financial support that should be flowing back and forth between the NFL and NBA and college sports might start to happen. But the fundamental thing is that the system right now is in complete flux. It's in total flux. Nobody knows where it's going. Everybody's trying to save their little piece of the earth and preserve their benefits, but it's not going to be possible. So, we can sit back and enjoy March Madness this year. We can enjoy particular college competitions. But unless unless something is done, and I think it has to be done by Congress, because the NCAA is not equipped to do it. And the court system is much too chaotic and much too expensive and much too slow to resolve it. As difficult as it is to get things done productively in the U.S. Congress these days, I'm afraid that's our best bet at this point, to have the Congress impose certain kinds of rules and certain kinds of structures going forward.
Do you think they're going to listen to Matt Baker, or Charlie Baker, excuse me, just because to just make it look like they care? Or do you believe that actually in that House or in the Congress or in that building that they really care about college athletics?
Sure. Yeah. Large numbers of them are big college athletic fans.
Sure.
And they have constituents who are big college athletic fans. And they see that the system is totally chaotic. And they also know that our Olympic system is dependent on our college sports system. So yeah, I'm working with a group called the Drake Group.
Yep.
And we have been working with members of Congress for the last year, and staffs of members of Congress. And I can tell you there's a great deal of interest, and there's a lot smaller political divide between the Republicans and the Democrats on the issue of college sports than there is on practically any other issue. So yeah, I think that they'll find a way to cross over the aisle and make some compromises, and we'll get some legislation. And whether it's going to be the legislation we need or not is another question. But perhaps we can get some stopgap measures, and then have a commission take a longer and bigger look at what needs to be done in the long run.
Andy, the media companies have all the power here, yet they're also in their own kind of economic scramble. I mean, ESPN's going to lay off a bunch of people. There have been layoffs across multimedia companies, all for the last couple of years. And a lot of them are, getting into sports or not, but there are some cautionary tales out there, especially recently with Bally Sports and the regional sports nets going bankrupt because the model is changing. What does that mean for anybody who wants to get into this game? And I know Bally Sports might be a little bit more of a unique situation, but even still, what's going on there, and how do the media companies maximize this and distribute to all the people they need to see?
Yeah, well, I think that you're absolutely right to point at a great deal of uncertainty and flux in the sports media space. Bally Sports owns the rights to broadcast, I think it's 15 now, Major League Baseball teams, plus a bunch of basketball teams and hockey teams. And they're going bankrupt. And a large reason for their bankruptcy is that the model has shifted. The model that they've been working off of all these years is the cable model, where everybody in a district that's served, say, by Comcast or by some other distributor, everybody has to buy the sports channels because they're bundled in with the news channels and the movies and so on and so forth. That model is changing. People are cutting the proverbial cord, and there's much more direct-to-consumer marketing. But what that means is that sports teams that used to benefit from the fact that everybody in their television district, and that could be 3 or 4 states together, everybody in the district had to pay for $6 a month to watch the Red Sox, even though they didn't care about the Red Sox. Even though, say, half of them didn't care about the Red Sox, everybody had to pay for it. And now we're in a model that only the people who care about the Red Sox are buying the Red Sox games. Or only people caring about the Yankees buying the Yankee games, and so on. And so that means that the revenue that gets generated in this system is going to go down. That's going to hurt the sports teams. Now, another thing that's happening throughout the media landscape is that younger people, Generation Z people, and many millennials are not interested in spending a couple hours watching a sports game anymore. Now, baseball is making some interesting changes to chop 20 to 25 minutes per game, and that might be marginally helpful. But when you compare the television ratings of people who are 50 and 60 watching baseball to people who are in their teens and in their 20s, it's an unbelievable comparison. Because millennials and Gen Z people just aren't interested in doing that. They have other things they're doing on the internet and other things they're doing in general, not spending time watching television. And what does that do? It reduces the audience, and the sports leagues see that happening, and they're going after sports betting as a way to reattach fans to their sports. Now, how well that works in the long run is very questionable in my mind. And it raises all sorts of additional questions about promoting addictive gambling and social problems that ensue from that.
Andy, if in fact the student athletes in college end up getting more, you'd mentioned the 1%, I think, earlier in the conversation. How do you go about doing that? Have you like even looked at the possibility of how that would work? How much more would they get? Would that make it even more difficult for college or universities, whatever, to make money or lose even more money? So how much do you feel like they maybe earn?
How much do I feel like they maybe what?
The college athletes earn on top of whatever they get. How much is it? Like an extra certain amount of money per year? Is it a percentage? Is it?
So I'm not. I think the way forward here is not to pay them an income, and
okay.
I can elaborate on that some more. But what I'm saying is that if you look at the pot of revenue that's generated in Division I in the NCAA every year, it's about $16 billion. Of that, 35% goes to compensate coaches, assistant coaches, and administrators. 35%. 16% or 17% goes to scholarships for the athletes, and an additional 1% goes for medical care. So the athletes are getting roughly 18% of the pie. The administrators and the coaches are getting 35% of the pie, and that needs to be changed. The way I would change it, rather than creating a labor market and turning people who are supposed to be students into employees, I would change it by providing additional resources for a proper education and providing medical support, not only while they're in college, but when they leave college, particularly for any injury that they have going forward that affects their earning capacity the rest of their lives. So that's a model, in my view, that would work much better, that would preserve what we love about college sports and would deal with some of the inequity that adheres to the present system.
Andy Zimbalist, again, a consultant, author, and sports economist with us on 365 Sports. Andy, on what is happening with streaming, and you know the story with the Pac-12, and they're trying to find a way to get themselves money per school and also visibility in some way to get their games on the air. Is that the future? Are they almost, if they were to go a lot or all streaming, is that ahead of its time and not quite people ready to handle that yet?
Well, so there's always a trade-off here. And the trade-off is the more you move to streaming, at least in 2023, the less exposure you have to the previous television audience that you had. And if you can manage to stay on ESPN, even if it ends up meaning that your total rights fees are a little bit lower, you get that much more exposure. And college sports does have to think about exposure. It's not automatic that people are going to want to watch Pac-12 games going forward. Look at even UCLA, which is now going to the Big Ten and a stronger school within the Pac-12. They've been getting 1/3 the size of crowds that they got 15 and 20 years ago, and so exposure is very important. But I think another question that needs to be addressed is how fans are going to react if the commercialization of the system and the monetization of the system continues apace. Will fans eventually start saying, well, this is looking more and more like minor league sports?
Mm-hmm.
The guys who are on the field are not really students anymore. What they are employees. And so insofar as college continues to move in an untrammeled fashion in that direction, what is the fans' gestalt going to be? Is it going to be, oh, I'm still just as interested in it? Or is it going to be, well, this is looking a lot like minor league baseball? And, of course, what happens in minor league baseball is instead of getting 30,000 people to the major league game, at the minor league level, if it's AAA, you might get 6,000 or 7,000. If it's AA, you might get 4,000 or 5,000. If single A, you might get 2,000 or 3,000. So I just think that there are so many issues now that college sports administrators have to pay attention to. But one of the key issues is, how are people experiencing your sport? How are they going to relate to the sport? How can you best continue to promote it in the long run?
Money is the driving force. Do you feel like that we've lost the innocence of college athletics, or is that still there?
Oh no, that's gone.
It's gone.
Okay. That was gone. That was gone in 1852 when they had
right.
first rowing race in Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire.
Wow.
Throughout the 19th century, as college football started to become this massively popular thing, they were hiring tramp athletes, one school after another. And a tramp athlete was simply somebody who wasn't a student. You just paid them to come and play for your football team.
Mm-hmm.
That was happening throughout the 19th century. At the beginning of the 20th century, the NCAA tried to clean that up, but they didn't really succeed. And then it wasn't until 1956 that you started to introduce student athletes, student scholarships. So instead of paying them under the table, now we were paying them indirectly over the table. But no, there's never been any purity. But if you're asking, is it getting dirtier and dirtier, I think the answer is yes.
Andy, we have so much more we'd love to hear from you on the Olympics and building stadiums into cities. Make money, lose money. Is it worth the trade-off? Love to get you on again in the future. I'll be in touch, and thank you so much for your time, your busy schedule.
Fun to talk to you guys. Take care.
Andy Zimbalist, sports economist and author of 20 books, and also a consultant. And appreciate his time and getting his insight and views on many things, college and even professional and, of course, media sports.
Yeah, I think that we'd need to have a whole preparation and an entire hour to talk to him to really get fulfilled with his knowledge. But that was a fun little segment there, and I don't think necessarily anything that we hadn't really heard. Certainly, as far as the fears of the road that sports is going down, and just all of the upheaval and turmoil and changes and questions about the future and all that. I think he touched on a lot of that, and we've discussed that to some varying lengths over the years. But yeah, it does seem like a really unique time period, and he's right. In terms of the money being spent, it's one thing when you're bringing in, tens of millions of dollars more on your new TV deal, but you also are spending tens of millions of dollars more on the players that you're now bringing in, as opposed to when you maybe tucked away a little bit here and there and, don't say anything, keep it on the low. And now it's all out in the wide open. So you are just out there spending money left and right. So we've heard plenty of times of programs that you think are highly successful that run at a deficit. And that would shock people, but that's the reality of the situation. So, a lot to unpack there. A few things, like I said, that we've kind of known or touched on previously, but fascinating conversation that's really only seemingly getting started, and a very interesting road the NCAA and college sports are walking down right now.
Andy Zimbalist, again, we appreciate him, and I'll be in touch with him to try to get him on Earth. Again, as Craig said, we could go a long, long time, but we have Craig Way, voice of the Longhorns. UT women, of course, having a great run. And how about what they've done with Rodney Terry into the Sweet 16 for Texas? Craig Way joins us on 365 Sports. I want to start with Dylan Dessou. I know that he is carrying, not alone, but it seems like he's almost carrying this team. When, Craig, did that actually start to happen?
Smokey, I think it happened right around the midseason mark, and really and truly, it kind of traces back to the knee injury and subsequent surgery he had after he transferred from Vanderbilt to Texas. Of course, he's a local product out of Hendrickson High in Pflugerville, and always wanted to go to Texas. Shaka Smart's staff, I think, was a little wary about the knee issue and went ahead and recruited different guys, and so he wound up going to Vanderbilt. Played well at Vanderbilt, but then sustained a knee injury, had to have surgery, and last year was kind of a slow road back for him. He actually even checked into the NBA, consulting, you might say, going just to see what they thought of him, visited with the league officials, and they advised him that he'd probably be better served to go back to school for another year, so he did, and real good student, and came back. And even in the first few ball games of the year, he was still, I don't know if, that old thing about when a wide receiver or a running back hurts the knee, about cutting it loose and trusting it. It might have been something like that, Smokey. But then I think after that, he started to come to life a little bit in conference play. And I got to tell you, and I think you were there to see it with your own eyes, that the game that kind of launched him into what he's doing now was the Baylor game. The rest of the Longhorns did not play very well, and the Bears beat them. But Dylan Dessou had 24 points in that game, and he was one of the few weapons they had. And then he's just been on fire, obviously, in the Big 12 tournament, winning the tournament outstanding player. He's just continued it on in the first 2 games of the NCAA tournament. So I think it's been a slow process, but now it is starting to crescendo for him a little bit.
Craig, he looks to me, and I don't mean this like to make fun of him in any way, but like he is like kind of gangly, and he doesn't look as athletic as he is. And I think there are probably players who don't even realize he's athletic as he is until he goes past them and makes them look foolish.
You know, Paul, I've heard him described as somewhat of an unrefined or still developing, whatever you want to call it, LaMarcus Aldridge starter kit. You know, he's got the length, he has athleticism, he's still refining on a lot of skills. But I will tell you one thing he's refined, and that's that in the lane, that jump hook, the one-arm push in the lane. He's very, very comfortable with that shot. I've talked to him a few times about it, and that's where he's at his most comfortable. And then he can hit different ones too. That was a gigantic fadeaway he hit from the baseline at the shot clock buzzer late in the ball game against Penn State. So he's developing his game. He can even shoot the three a little bit, and has done so, but he's more comfortable in the mid-range game. So the mid-range jumper is not quite a lost art yet, at least in his mind.
Craig, obviously the Rodney Terry storyline is one that's been fascinating now ever since he took over the reins as the interim head coach. And I don't mean to ask this as far as like, well, what do you think they do in the future or anything like that? I totally understand why they want this season to play out. But have you, in all your years covering as much as you have, seen anything quite like him jumping into the fire and having the success he's had? What's that been like to be on the side to kind of watch that unfold these last few months?
You know, the closest thing I can even think to compare to it, well, and David, I know you'll remember this, the 1989 Michigan thing with Steve Fisher taking over for Bill Frieder, and they launch a 6-0 run and win the national championship. I don't know that it's quite the same thing because this happened far earlier in the season. The thing that's impressed me the most is when he took over the job, he totally settled the guys in. And there were some, especially some of the younger players, who were, pretty upset. What do we do now? But because this team had 6 seniors on it, they kind of decided amongst themselves, we're not going to let our season crumble. Dana O'Neill from The Athletic did a great piece on them. And she came to dinner with us when we were in Knoxville the night before the Tennessee game and wanted to get down to the crux of the matter. Why did this team not fold? And to a man, Timmy Allen, Marcus Carr, the veterans of this group, Jabari Rice, we're not, Brock Cunningham, we're not going to let it fold away. They said, it's our team, it's up to us, and plus they really like Rodney Terry. They think the world of RT. So I think all of that. And then the other thing, the one thing you've asked me what I've noticed very, very little in terms of the way the whole operation was going. And Chris Beard was the coach. And what I mean by that is the daily practice routines on the road, the meal times, the film sessions, all of that stuff remained consistent. And I think that was important. There weren't a lot of shocks. Rodney didn't, try to go in and reinvent the wheel or blow it up and say, no, this is how we're going to do it. This is how I'm going to do it, because he had so much input into it before when Beard was the head coach. Chris used to say that he kind of brought Rodney in to be the defensive coordinator, almost a co-head coach type. Chris was definitely the head coach, but Rodney was such a big part of it. And so was Bob Donewald, who was kind of the offensive coordinator. And those guys have still kind of retained those primary responsibilities. It's just that Rodney, I think, has had that calming influence on the guys. And it goes all the way back, fellas, to touch it to your home base, to his formative years as a coach when he was on Harry Miller's staff at Baylor, even before he took the Texas job. And I did not know this until this year. He almost went to work for Kelvin Sampson at Oklahoma and then got talked out of it, stayed one more year, and then Rick Barnes hired him. And that launched it. They were together for 10 seasons. And then after that, he went off, became a head coach, did a great job at Fresno, and then went to UTEP, was trying to build it back up. And Beard wanted him to come back and be in that role. And so he did. And so I think there's been very little absolute blow up, shake up all of that sort of stuff. And I think that's made a difference as to why this team remained settled and remained calm and directed, even when they, had lost a game or two here or there. They only lost back-to-back games one time, and that was the Baylor and TCU games on the road late in the year, and they haven't lost since. So I think all of that added up to it.
Craig, is there a common belief that he's back, but they just don't want to mention anything now until whatever is the final end of this journey, whether championship, Final Four, or whatever?
I think that's a logical way to look at it, David. I think that he obviously has earned it, and I think probably that decision will come down. I don't know if he's been told that in private. They already gave him a big-time bump in pay when things were going well just a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think it was. So that, to me, demonstrated confidence in his abilities and skills and all of that sort of thing. And he's done nothing to alter any of that. So I think it's probably just a matter of time and formality, but things are on a roll right now. And I don't think anybody wants to do anything or say anything that might distract this team from his mission.
When they fell behind, when Penn State made that run, there were probably, and a lot of teams may have just not been able to overcome that and crumble. Do you feel like because of what you mentioned, the consistency within the program, that they didn't panic, even though Penn State seemed like they had the upper hand? And then Dessou came in, made a bunch of plays, but it just seemed like okay, we've got time here. Let's get this thing back.
Yeah, I think it was a big part of it, David. And what he did was, I asked him point blank when he came right over, right after the final horn sounded. First, Timmy Allen came over, and I asked him what was said in the timeout. Penn State had the 10-0 run. They're up 58-55. Rodney calls timeout. I asked Timmy Allen, he said, just stay within our defensive principles. The rest will come to us and not worry about it. And he was very calm in a pandemonium moment. And so I said to him, okay, I'm going to let you go celebrate. And then he screamed at the top of his lungs, Sweet 16, and I think just blew out one of our headsets or something. But he was very excited about it. And then Rodney came over, and I asked him, I said, what exactly? He goes, just to keep doing what we're doing. That when we're within ourselves, we're okay. I mean, some of it sounds like coach speak. And, the guys give him a lot of good-natured grief because he has a lot of those old-fashioned coach sayings, Hayes in the barn. I even asked Timmy Allen, Marcus Carr, and Sir'Jabari Rice in the off-day press conference on Friday, what's your favorite Rodney Cherry phrase? And it was actually Brock Cunningham. And Cunningham liked Hayes in the barn. Marcus Carr said, I like combo platter. He said, it's a meat and potatoes day. We're like, Coach, it's a combo platter. We got a lot happening on this. And then I think Timmy Allen said something else too. They all have their favorite phrases because Rodney's got a book of them, but they just roll off his tongue naturally. But the one they all live by, the one he uses most, live where your feet are. Live where your feet are. And that's what they're doing right now. And that's what they did, I think, in the moment there, down 3, and they turned around and launched a 10-0 run to win the ballgame.
Craig, one of the things that would give me the most confidence about this team being able to make a deep run and maybe win this whole thing is that you have guys that literally could discuss their real estate purchases because they're veteran, 23, 24, 20, maybe 25 years old, all across the roster. And that's seemingly what wins in college basketball now is guys who are veterans and don't get rattled by little things. This is an old team by college standards. And you could tell, is it those moments where you can tell that this is veterans and not guys who are, caught deer in the headlights?
Absolutely, Paul. And you know what? It's, and all coaches know this, portal science. I mean, that's what it's come down to. Portal science. The science, not only of being able to be successful in getting guys to transfer in on the transfer portal, but the guys who best fit your program. Could anyone have predicted that Sir'Jabari Rice coming in from New Mexico State would be the Big 12 Sixth Man of the Year and would develop a lethal shot fake, a pump fake, and be able to be a dead-eye three-point shooter? He wasn't against Penn State, but he was against Colgate. He's been big all season long. Portal science. And I think the same thing holds true, with Timmy Allen, Marcus Carr, who came in. Then you talk about real gray beards. Brock Cunningham was a local product. I mean, he was a a teammate of several different guys whose careers have long since gone by. And he continues to play. He's a grad student now in the advertising program. He's got a year of eligibility left, guys. He got his COVID year to be back. He had taken a redshirt year when they won the NIT in 2019. So you're not done with Brock Cunningham yet. He'll be back one more year. So portal science, I think, has a lot to do with a lot of this.
Well, it's a great run. What are your thoughts about how they match up with Xavier?
Xavier is bigger, faster, and more skilled than either Penn State or Colgate. They also feature a player who played for Rodney Terry at UTEP. Sully Boone played for Rodney at UTEP. And when Rodney first took the job to be on Chris Beard's staff, he tried to get Sully to transfer there, but Sully ended up transferring to Xavier. And he's a weapon as well. But they've got guys who can shoot it. They're very, very good offensively. They give up some points on the defensive side. The Longhorns will have to be better offensively than they were Saturday night in order to win. And then they're going to have to be hitting their usual marks on defense to have an opportunity to win the game.
I know you got a game with the women tonight. Craig, thanks for your time on a busy day, and look forward to it. The Sweet 16, the Big 12 with 2 teams left, Jerome Tang, Kansas State, and Rodney Terry in Texas. We appreciate your time, Craig. Craig Way, voice of the Longhorns, with us on 365 Sports.
Hardest working man in show business.
Yeah, it probably is. You know, does basically everything. Does not get to do all the women's games, but when he can, he does. Baseball, not all of the games, but when he has an opening, he does, and he can fly from one place to the other. It's pretty amazing what he's done. And I knew him back when he was in local radio in the Dallas market, when he used to do a high school scoreboard show back in the 80s. All right, we have a lot to get to. Mark Vital, former Baylor forward, will join us today at 4. We have Joseph Duarte from the Houston Chronicle on the Cougars and their run into the Sweet 16, and they seem to get themselves right back on track with the route that they had coming up into the Sweet 16, and so much more. David Hellman on the Cowboys, who made a hell of a move this weekend with another trade. Stephon Gilmore and now Brandon Cooks. That and more. This is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace can do 2 things for you. And the first thing they can do is find out what is bothering you, whether it's a muscle or a ligament in your back, in your neck, in your knee, in your ankle, wherever it is, a muscle or ligament that has got, well, some major problems. They will find it. They will see the evidence and then send the images to your doctor, orthopedic surgeon, or whoever it might be to make sure they get to see the evidence too. And then on top of that, an MRI is average about $1,100 across the country. Ideal MRI will never charge you more than $497, and that is every single time, and sometimes even help you, or not sometimes less, because they will help you filing your insurance papers if, in fact, they cover that. Ideal MRI with Dr. Rob Maxey, the Texan specialist, who will make sure your visit is comfortable, and also inside the MRI machine to make sure even that is comfortable and enjoyable too. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace on I-35 in Waco.
Just as teams are celebrating on the courts, your mountaintop experience begins during the Jeep Celebration event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with total values up to $5,500 on second and third row options, or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with up to $5,000 in total values. And if we don't have exactly what you want, we can help you build the new custom Jeep of your dreams. It's the Jeep Celebration event at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker room, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Botch, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Creighton knocked Baylor out. Round of 32. Last year, it was that unbelievable game when Baylor was down a bunch, came back, forced overtime, lost to North Carolina, who made a run to the national championship. That remains to be seen with Creighton. Last night, soon after the game, or during the game, in fact, Mark Vital, simple defense, rebounds, and effort. And if any picture summarized or was a picture of Mark Vital playing basketball or anything, that was it. And Mark Vital, the national championship forward, joins us on 365 Sports. Mark, thank you very much for your time. How much did they miss, like, just someone who was a physical presence that would knock somebody over, or just that toughness that you brought to the table?
Hey, man, I miss you guys, man.
You too.
Doing this, man. Oh, man, I watched the games, and I watched these guys up to, until we lost yesterday. Man, it's hard to coach a lot of effort. You know what I'm saying? Effort is just what's inside of you, and so watching these guys yesterday, man, they did a good job in some spurts of the play. I just wanted these guys to play harder throughout the whole game and not to feel like they had to give up. And it's hard to try to, compare my effort, my energy, and everything to some of these guys now, and I had to understand that a little bit yesterday. But man, I just wish they had that one dog,
Well, Mark, it's kind of interesting because that is his energy and effort is there is John, but he's not completely healthy yet and his normal player, so he can't physically exert that same athleticism that he had. But it was built up through a couple different things with kind of Ish Wainwright, when you got here, was right here right before you, and then you and Freddie were kind of like that, and then you on the national championship team, and John was kind of supposed to take the reins, but it's hard to, like you said, there's not really a lot of transference. It's either it's in you or it's not, and John can't physically exert himself to that way.
Yeah, man. Like I was thinking about it a little bit yesterday, man. I kind of blame myself in a way, and you guys probably laughing. Like, how, Mark? How do you blame yourself for what happened yesterday? And I kind of blame myself, and I told Coach Drew the same thing, man. Like, me coming up, when I redshirted, I had guys coming back to kind of show me the way, And for me, even though I had some days off, some time off, I still always went back and just practice with the guys, man. Talk to the guys, practice with the guys. Just tell the guys, man, how much it is to value a role. I think so many guys didn't have the role figured out until the last few minutes of the year. But I just think I kind of blame myself. So I should have came back and taught you guys a little better. The big bro should have came back. So I blame that little bit of that loss to myself. But like you said, man, John is not 100% as he want to be. Because he's just John right now. We need everyday John back, and I know that he will be back. Slow still was slow. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a lot of stuff, man. And I kind of blame myself, like I say.
How much of that defensive, toughness mentality, how much of that do you think was ingrained in you, and how much do you think that was kind of taught to you along the way? Like, how much could you have helped out somebody who, maybe didn't have that to begin with? Is that something you feel like you can instill?
Yes. So for me, man, I just think I was born with that gift. But at the same time, man, it installed the IQ, the lit, you know what I'm saying, the pounding, just really just developed me in that way. I always had energy, and I always have, you can't coach Mr. 95. You know what I'm saying? I think from now on, for the next going on year, Coach Drew should have assigned a Mr. 95% to somebody every year, and somebody has to buy into that role and really watch the film on, Rico, Ishmael Wainwright, myself, TJ Maston, Joe Achua, all those guys, man, and really just develop that role, and that's just how I think of it. I don't think a lot of guys realize they role until a little too late, and now, we end up losing. But, man, I just feel like a Mr. 95 should be out there every year.
Mark, what's it like as a former player who put blood, sweat, and tears into this program, and you reached the mountaintop a couple of years ago, and being a Baylor guy, to watch them not have as much success, even though the last 2 years have been good in ways, but now the expectation of the standard was set. What's it been like to watch the last couple of years the way it ended?
I would say it like this, man. I'm always proud of them every year. You know why? Because a lot of the time, I think we all forget that at one point we wasn't making the tournament.
Yep.
We wasn't making the tournament. So, anytime I see these guys make these tournaments and pass the first round, second round, or just get into the first round, I'm excited for these guys, man. And, I know they put in the work, and they don't understand the history, but we do. When it comes down to that. But, man, I can't really say about the building because, man, they had guys before me building. Man, I can take you back. Red shirt, we lost to South Carolina, Sweet 16. The next year, lost to a buzzer beater, Mississippi State. The next year, second round, Gonzaga. The next year we lost to COVID, then we won a championship. So I've been through the trials and tribulations just like some of the guys. But I think what will help Coach Drew is getting a young guy and just grooming him like he did myself, you know?
Yeah, Mark, you were, when you come in, your first ever, what I remember about you, it's the same, really, you and Ish Wainwright were so similar to me in that for a while, it was just like, let's put this guy out there. He's a bull in a china shop. And then once he figures out how to direct that energy, then it's going to be something really good. What were those early years like for you where you were out there like, look, you were going to get a hard foul that was going to get you taken out of the game, but like, look, good energy, but maybe not as much. What was that like as you learned how to hone your power?
Yeah. I took it in like a whole superhero. I was a superhero that couldn't control any of his energy. Like when Superman just learned that he had his powers, you know. And for me, man, it was really hard, man. Like I say, Ish installed that into me, you know, Ish, and just coming back and coming over those visits and really playing with some of those guys. But a lot of film really helped me. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of film and just really just learning to control my body to keep the same energy. You know, I don't think some of the guys now realize how important it is for film, and some guys might, or they just might be looking at it different. And then again, you got to think about it too, man. This is the first year where the whole boy band is broken up, you know, with the whole coaching staff. So, man, it's a little different.
I'm glad that you said that's perfect timing, actually, because I wanted to ask you, this is a two-part question. A lot of people after the game like, oh, man, we lost our sauce when Tang left and, things like that. Can you go in depth on, the role that he played and how much they might be missing because Jerome Tang is no longer on staff, especially, on the defensive side? And then also, how happy are you for him and his success that he's having right now?
Oh yeah, man! Like I told you, man, that's like I'm a little too young. You guys probably know about the Beatles and everything. So
yeah,
it's like you guys breaking up that band, man, and just everybody had their role within it. It was no particular coach there. There was like, hey, if we take you away, everything would change. Every coach played that role, and just. When we won the championship, you guys, you seen we had roles, and then everybody left. You see that Matthew Mayer had to now be the star, and Adam Flanagan had to go into this role, and then this guy had to go into this role. Now, who's Mr. 95? You know what I'm saying? So, just like the players, it's the same for the coaches. And we have great coaches, and Coach Tang was an awesome coach. And we're like, man, here's going to him. And I'm saying it now. You're the first here. It's going to him. And he was an excellent coach, man. He was the mouth. He was the heart. He made sure he kept me in check a lot of the times when I'm trying to get it out of hand. But he was that guy, man.
Was he was he the one that was not unafraid to say something to anyone that needed it?
Yeah, I would say all the coaches were like that, but
Yep.
Coach Tang was that real vocal. Like Coach Tang was that real vocal guy. He'll pull you to the side and he'll get on you. Like he recruited me, so I got it the worst. But yeah, man, he'll get on you, man. He'll get on you real tight.
We were talking about him earlier, and that he had a couple of barbs after John Calipari said some stuff yesterday, and Coach Tang is self-made. He has pulled himself up. When he interviewed with Coach Drew, he was broke and just trying to get by, get into the coaching game. So he's been through it. How much does his life experience kind of help reach people, because he's been through some stuff too?
Yeah, man, Coach Tang, man, Jim talked about this one year, man. Coach Tang lifestyle is played like a movie through us. You know what I'm saying? Like, that energy, everything, the spirituality of everything is through him. It goes straight to his players. And I'm not surprised that K-State is in the Sweet 16 right now. And I'm not surprised they don't go to the Final Four and win it all. I wanted to win it all. And just being honest, man, the way Coach Tang is going straight to his players. And you can tell by his players, man. And I take that disrespect what Coach Calipari said about, his players and everything, but man, you got to give respect when respect is due. You guys got outplayed by a grimy team. You know what I'm saying? That's a great team that you guys play and you guys lost. But yeah, man, Coach Tang put all his energy within his players, and he loves his players, man. He's a player's coach, if you may say.
Mark, Flo Thamba had himself a great career, was a part of the national championship. He was huge like you were, and Jonathan, especially with the way he dominated Gonzaga underneath and inside and just completely harassed Timmy. But is he someone that you think needs a Batman-Robin type combination for him to play better inside? That person that takes care of a lot of the other dirty work so he can be around to do what he's supposed to do and block shots?
Yeah, man. The things that people don't know about Flo is that Flo is one of those players where in the right moment he can turn it on. You know what I'm saying? And when it comes down to Batman and Robin, I would say in a way, yeah, because it's like it takes a lot of pressure off of him, you know, because he can get those easy picks, those easy box outs and everything like that. And when the team is trying to scout that and they only seeing like one player doing it, it's kind of easy for them to check Flo and really bang on him, man. Like yesterday, man, it was a big guy. Even though people say, well, Flo is this tall and he's supposed to, it don't always work like that. I was 6'4" and I was going against 7-footers. So it don't always work like that. And, yeah, I kind of agree with it. But at the same time, man, Flo is his own version of his player, you know?
Mark Vidal, former Baylor forward with us, national championship player for Baylor on 365 Sports.
So, Mark, what do you think is the future for this Baylor? I mean, they're going to be good every year. You know that. Like, what do you think the future is for the guys who are coming back, and how will this kind of fuel that moving forward? Like you talked about, that South Carolina game was something I'm sure that stung for a while until you got to that next one and the next one.
So, man, Baylor's going to be good for a long time, especially if Coach Drew adds me to the coaching staff. Oh, man, he added me to the coaching staff, man. It'll be even better. But, nah, man, these guys will be unique for a long, long time, man. They got a great staff. They got great GAs, great managers, man. We got an awesome fan base. Even when we was losing, I don't care what people say. The people that was loyal still are there. We just added a few more. But we're going to be good for a long time just based off of the culture, man. One thing I will say, even though we lost, we still have that coach. You know, I've been to a couple games, man, and the coach is still there. The locker room is still there. Guys loving on guys, man, and enjoying each other. You know what I'm saying? And great recovery from Dave, everybody. And so the culture is still there, man. We just got to find our roles within it. I don't think we established our roles, and I don't think we're soft. I don't understand why some people would think that we're soft. We're not soft. We had a couple guys that was a little younger, a couple older guys, but at the same time, man, it took me 4 years to get into a role.
Mark, how much can the offseason with Charlie Melton, how much does that, you think, help Jonathan because of the miracle in the first place that he even got back on the floor? And I think a lot of people just thought he would just go right back to who he was, which was an impossible ask, but an offseason for him. And someone like Jalen Bridges, who kind of plays that tweener position, if he comes back for another year, how much can they bulk him up?
Man, I would say this, and I hope you guys quote me on this. Charlie Melton is Mr. Miyagi. He is Mr. Miyagi, man. He's the reason why all these NFL teams and WWE, everybody's reaching out to me because of Charlie Melton changing my body from that squirmy kid into the beast you see now. And so, man, I think him and Dave played a huge part within, you know, Jonathan's process coming back, man. And Charlie Melton could shake anybody back. I remember I had a hip. I had messed my hip up my sophomore year, and I was supposed to be out for like 2 weeks, man, because Charlie got me right within like 2 days, it felt like. And I came back with so much energy. And, yeah, like I said, man, Charlie Melton is Mr. Miyagi. Now, that's my brother. I love him. I still talk to him to this day about, man, hey, how can I do this for my body, man? I feel a little ache in my calf. Hey, man, that's all you got to do. And I do it, and I'll be good like in the next 5 minutes. I'll be like, oh, that's all it was?
So how do you think Scott and the staff with Coach Jacobs and Alvin and others, Bill Peterson, how do you feel like Ty Beard, they handle this offseason?
Man, they're going to do what they do best. They're gonna work them real good. They're gonna try and install everything that they know into them. I mean, I think every year, if I'm not wrong, that Coach Drew has got better as a coach. If you agree, I think he has got better as a coach every year, along with the coaching staff. Like I say, man, it's the Beatles are broken up. So I think what's going to happen now is that, man, it's going to be a lot over the off season. Like I said, man, Coach Drew might add me to the coaching staff. I'm just playing with him, but we'll figure something out, you know. And I'm gonna go down there a couple of times just to work with some of the guys, also, man, just to teach them a little bit of what I know. I know some of the other guys and best to come down too. So it's gonna be a fun off season, and I'm just happy I can be part of it.
Well, there's no question former players have been more than welcomed back to come back to the program from the days of Epe Udo or whoever else and the most recent players like yourself. What is that, or is there a fine line in you being who you were and what you brought to this program and yet not overstepping your boundaries so some of the new guys are, no matter what you've done, are maybe not ready to hear that?
Right. So for me, man, I tell guys I'm just as real as it gets. I'm not a guy that's coming in trying to swag of, hey, man, I've won a championship, so you guys got to listen to everything. I want everybody to be their own player, you know? And the only thing I can do is teach you and give you my IQ and my thoughts of things, which I can teach you and lead you to water, but I can't make you drink. You know, that's what Coach Drew used to always tell me. And I feel like when guys come back, that's your vet. Even though, okay, some guys might not be in the NBA, some guys might not be wherever, some guys might just work at the car dealership or whatever it may be. At the end of the day, they're still your family. You know, they're still your Baylor family. And they know something that you don't know. They played, you know what I'm saying? And that's part of different cultures. So for me, man, I used to always take it in when guys come in, man. Even if I didn't, or I used to listen to Perry Jackson and hear this guy tell me about, man, you need to start doing this and start doing that. Okay, cool, man. Even though I'm not your height, but I'm still trying to do it. But it's always good for guys to come back, and these young guys, you know, and that's one of my things I struggled with my first couple of years was listening. And then once I figured it out by just listening to guys, everything worked out.
Mark, you've had an interesting couple of years, you know, after you spent the time with the Chiefs. What have you learned about yourself in the last couple of years? What did you learn? You're one of the only people who can say that you were coached by Scott Drew and Andy Reid. So that's a weird overlap there.
Yeah. I try to tell guys, man, the two things they got in common is that coffee. Them guys can drink some coffee, man. They both fun coaches, man. But learning from the NFL, even some of the NBA stuff, and college, man, all I can put together is hard work and dedication, really, and how much time go into this. Like, I realize it doesn't matter what sport you playing. It's a lot of time going into this and how to take care of your body. And so, man, you see the difference in coaching, too, with different coaches and how aggressive some is, how cool some is. But, man, for me, man, I just know it's hard work and dedication and just really locking in. Take care of your body. Take care of your money. Like I tell people, man, take care of your money, too. And really just love what you do and trust the process.
Mark, what is the future for you? I know that you were on the practice squad, Seattle, then, of course, Kansas City. What is now your goal?
My goal right now, man, I am still training and just waiting for a home right now as far as football. But if it doesn't work out like I want to, I have a couple other options. I got one secret option that I won't kind of surprise you guys with. But I'm going to surprise you guys with it if it happens.
Okay.
But if that doesn't work like I want to, I'm going to go back to basketball, go overseas, man, and go be Mr. 95 for somebody overseas, and then come back to Baylor and hopefully coach.
Yep. I will make sure. I think Scott Drew will probably hear about the fact you've offered yourself for that. Tweety Carter, former player, is on staff. One serious note, and you've talked to us even back after the national championship, that at times – there is the worry about mental health and about being depressed and all of that. How are you doing with handling yourself during any of the downs in your life?
Man, that's a great question, man. I was just talking to a family member about that, how to deal with, that mental depression and anxiety and everything. And for me, man, I've been working on it so well to a point where I can actually speak out to others about it. And you remember at one time I was kind of shelled off about a lot of things, but man, now I learned my meditations and always just really staying busy and just really talking to people. And I learned to really open up and talk. And like I said, I always appreciate when I come on here and I talk, and you always ask about you guys always ask about my mental health, because they always played a part in a lot of things I do. But man, I've been awesome. I'm like a big rose from the concrete.
Yeah.
I finally bloomed a little bit.
Well, you are always great to hear your voice, and always great to hear your passion and some truth serum along the way with perhaps the last couple of years with Baylor and what they do in the offseason as well. Stay in touch with this young man. We appreciate you. Love you to death, and always appreciate your insight.
Man.
You too.
Love you guys, man.
Mark Vital, former Baylor national champion, a couple of times at Kansas City, released back in late July at the end of training camp in 2022. But just to have that experience, you look at Ish Wainwright, who's now in the NBA with Phoenix, had his shot, went Europe. Rico Gathers, we know what happened with the Cowboys. If he would have taken care of business a little bit more, who knows what would have happened to him. Did not work out, but at least the opportunities have been there for them, and including Mark Vital. Yeah, they just, Craig, they didn't have a bull in the china shop, so to speak, is I guess the best way to put it. That doesn't mean you can't win without one, or you have to have one, but yeah, somebody that was going to knock you on your ass, or at least make sure people knew you were there.
Yeah, that was one thing that they were missing. But, when you can't hit any shots, doesn't really matter how mean and tough you are. If you can't put the ball in the bucket, then, your efforts defensively are somewhat stunted compared to, if you're able to build off of that. And so when you don't have the defense and you don't have the offense, and the other team's got a little bit of both, and they got a lot on the offensive side, that's the result you get yesterday. I don't think it's all that complicated. I mean, this is exactly what we talked about, and I don't know. I'm not, trying to stir the pot or anything, but we got a pretty aggressive little negativity, tweet or message or whatever it was last week in regards to the talk about the basketball team, and the message was negative, but it was because we had seen them, lose their regular season finale at home, turn around, go to the Big 12 tournament, lose again to the exact same team. Neither game was particularly close, so you lose your home finale. You go one and done in the Big 12 tournament. You go and beat UC Santa Barbara. That's great, but you ran into somebody who could look you eye to eye, and they didn't even make it look all that close, quite frankly. I mean, I know Baylor made a run, and, final score looks a lot closer than that game really felt, but the knock on this team was they don't play defense, or they don't play very good defense, and that they're exceptionally talented offensively, but if the shots aren't falling, then what do you pivot to?
Nothing inside. If you were just an out
and
perimeter
there's
team.
nothing inside. So, it was outside shooting or shooting, or, just the other team going cold and not hitting shots. But, if they ran into a team that could put the ball in the bucket or could shoot well and, expose their flaws, then they were going to be, a sitting duck, and they were a sitting bear, certainly this weekend. I mean, that was everything that you worried about, from down in the paint to outside the arc to the points in between. Everywhere you looked was the problems that we've seen all year long, and they all added up into one game where even at the end you pull within, single digits, and you feel like, oh, man, there's just, this or that had happened, but unfortunately, time ran out, and we knew that was going to be the case, and that's why I kept harping on. Not that this is any philosophical, eye-opening type of thing. Of course, they're going into every game, especially in the NCAA tournament, knowing that it's their last. But it's do you really grasp? I know at 20, do you really grasp? This is it. This is it. If you don't show up ready to play, somebody's going to take you down. And I think that was an alarming thing as well. It's just sort of early on, you're like, do y'all realize this is the second round of the NCAA tournament, and this is a really good team you're facing? I don't know that they caught on to that until it was a little bit later.
Yeah,
but.
I mean, Mark had a good point about people couldn't find their roles, or they wanted it to be a certain thing. When Jalen Bridges figured out the Baylor season got a lot better, right? Yeah, I mean, remember, that 10 of 11 coincided with.
This is who they were, and then he found out, he clicked, and then this is who they were. Yeah.
And then there was flux because of injuries and different things here and all that, and just the grind of the year. I think one of the things they could only win. Creighton beat them at their own game yesterday because, look, if you watch Creighton was not playing 40 minutes of hell defense out there. They weren't stopping Baylor from getting open looks. Baylor was just missing their open looks. I mean, Adam Flagler, was hitting the back of the rim on three-point shots like again and again and again. And look, shooters will shoot their way out of it. That's great. And they kept doing that, but eventually you get kind of panicked and where the team has been the best stretch of 19, 20, 21 of Baylor basketball was when they knew that when the shots weren't falling, it's okay because yours aren't going to fall either.
Yes.
And I'm going to make sure of it. This team did not have that gear. I think the next teams will. It is going to be interesting to see what Scott Drew does in the transfer portal because...
Well, it also depends on who may enter the transfer portal.
But let's just say that Flagler, I mean, we know Thamba's gone. He's completely out of eligibility. But Flagler, Keontae, Thamba gone. Plus, you've got the guys like Jordan Turner and Loveday.
Yeah.
So you've got some scholarships to work with. No doubt about it, because you've got two guys coming in Jacoby Walter and Miro Litter, but those both guards.
I will say this very quickly, and the others, I mean, the NIL era, they're basically free agents.
No, I mean,
but
you don't think someone wants L.J. Cryer?
No, sure.
Yeah. Just for simplicity's sake, let's say that they make that happen with L.J. Cryer, and L.J. Cryer comes back.
You hope so.
But, I'm just trying to keep it simple here without, roster permutations. What they really need to do is they've got guys that can play point guard because they'll have D'Antoine Grimes, and that's what Miro Little does. So they've got a couple point guards. Not to say that they won't go out and get a veteran, like they did with James Akinjo. But if they need to find an Akinjo, they also need to find a Mark Vital type or someone like that who is...
I call them bangers.
Yeah, who is Mr. Like he called it Mr. 95, who is just a psycho.
Yeah.
And Mark would completely embrace that term. I should have said. I mean, he was a psycho out there, and it was hard to deal with. And every single coach in the Big 12 would say things about Ish, about him. I forgot about TJ Massey.
Yeah.
That was a good one, too, about those guys that randomly
the dirty work.
You would have someone like, okay, Pierre Jackson scored this many points. Be like, yeah, but man, Corey Jefferson really cleaned up down here on this. Or I remember, the one that stuck out to me was Bob Huggins after a game where Vital scored 2 points, but he had a bunch of rebounds.
Didn't he call him the Big 12 Player of the Year?
He should be the Big 12 Player of the Year, and he averages less than 6 a game.
Yeah.
He's like, that's how good he is. And it kind of hits you then like, okay, this is how hard a guy like that is to deal with, and then open so much stuff up for everybody else because you always had to wonder where is Vital going to be? Where's Freddie Gillespie going to be?
You know who? Yeah, not as a coach trying to put a game plan together against Baylor. As a player on the court, where is he?
Yeah.
You're always kind of like a guy, you just like, where is he?
That's why I thought, that was so painful about Jonathan last year getting hurt was he got hurt sprinting down the court about to go make something happen. That's what he did. And he would have that guy like, wait a minute, he was just down there. And then he efforted his way, all the way in. So that's what they're missing, and I think that's what they'll go find. The great thing about the Bears in the transfer portal is they've never – I say never, but I think he throws in pennies and gets out $20 bills when it comes to the transfer portal. Nobody's been more effective in it than Scott Drew.
Where would they have been – and I know it wasn't always just at a high level, but where would they have been even this week – or this season without Jalen Bridges coming in? Lohner had a pretty good tournament, but he went through a stretch there where he really lost a lot of minutes. A lot of that, he wasn't producing, he wasn't playing well. I'm not so sure you don't see them go out and look for a point guard or someone like that in the transfer portal. Now, one of the things that is curious, do you have the L.J. Cryer mom tweet? And I traded a couple of text messages back and forth, direct messages, exercising my right to remain silent. She was kind of vocal at times during the season. And I don't think it was because LJ wasn't playing a lot, because he was. But I think it was just the way that the game the way they played the game on the offensive end. And there's rumors And there was even last year speculation he may not come back. If he comes back this next year, he will be the dog. He has a chance to be the dog for this team next year, but we'll see how that works out. You know, Scott Drew and company are making sure you have to re-recruit your own roster before you worry about who comes in and you add to your roster.
Yeah, and you could talk about the freshmen coming in, but what types of teams go and win with freshmen right away? And
Not
go win
many
national
anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is they kind of helped set the blueprint a couple years ago with the roster that they had being as old as it is and being all veteran. And now you see it. Everybody's trying to mimic that as best they can. I mean, look at Texas. That's an old-ass team right there, you know?
Who then handled that push yesterday from Penn State, I think, because of that age they have.
It probably doesn't. They probably crater if they're sophomores and freshmen, you know, as far as the point in their careers. But the fact that they're older and, you know, more experienced and wizened up and all of that, hardened up, that's something that makes a massive difference, as we saw with, you know, Mark's team in that championship run. So, yeah, I mean, roster construction is harder than ever, although more accessible and in some ways easier than ever, you know, in terms of being able to identify a quick fix. Actually being able to land a quick fix is a whole nother matter. And that's another side of the business that, you know, Baylor's very well supported, but they are not a massive school with unlimited, you know, waterfalls of money like some others are. And so, yeah, you're going to have to probably be pretty particular on, you know, what you pursue and what you can and cannot do in terms of being realistic about the roster. But I'm going to be very curious to see how it's constructed because, you know, I think this year was kind of a mix of both. You had your young pup, you know, and your star young, you know, guy in Keontae George, and then at the same time you had some of your older transfer player and a Jalen Bridges. You had, you know, just a mixture of guys. You had your vets that have been around for a while. You have your other younger guys that D'Antoine Grimes saw a little bit of time, or Lujuwana, and I know I'm probably pronouncing
Ojuluna.
Ojuluna,
Yeah.
thank you. So it's just a kind of a mixed bag of veterans, young guys, and all of that. And I'm curious to see kind of the route that they pursue here, because you're always going to have some type of a mix, and you can't just go in the transfer portal and land like 9 vets who have all played 20, you know, games a year. So, yeah, that's going to be easier said than done, but it's going to be a fascinating exercise because there were some glaring holes this year and things that you know that you need to address moving forward, and not just personnel-wise, but just in terms of mentality and those types of things
and
as
how
well.
it fits together.
Right.
Grimes, he marinated this yeyear. Young man from Kilgore College. I'll never forget what a couple of coaches in that region told me. The junior college, he's the best player in our conference. But he marinated because they had the guards. And then, of course, Langston Love. Let's not forget about him, who's been through these frustrating things, the knee, and then, of course, the eye. That surely was just a fluky thing. He has a chance, big, thick, physical. He has a chance to maybe grab onto that mantelpiece, so to speak, as well.
I'm very bullish on the future of Josh Ojuluna. I think he's only had 1 year with Charlie Melton, with Mr. Miyagi there.
No, you're right.
If people, I love telling Charlie Melton stories because he's been here a long time and he's done a lot with it. I mean, look, Rico Gathers is a big dude, but he was not what you'd call in shape when he got here. Mm-mm. And then all of a sudden he turned into like, he just looked like a superhero all of a sudden. The most impressive thing he ever did, and he turned him into an NBA player because of this, was Corey Jefferson was an elite high school basketball player in Texas. I did a game doing PA at the Farrell Center. They called me kind of out of the blue and said, hey, we've got some high school games tonight. Can you come and do them? When I got there, you know, I didn't even know who was playing there. I just walked in the door, and they gave me the list. I was like, oh, Colleen, they've got that kid that's coming here, Corey Jefferson. And a couple of the coaches from Baylor were there watching, and so was Charlie Melton. And Corey Jefferson was rail thin.
Yeah.
Like very thin. And Charlie Melton put some weight on him. If Josh Ojuluna already has 50 pounds on Corey Jefferson, of course, most human beings did at that point in his life. But if he can do with Josh what he did with Corey, man, that's going to be impressive.
You know, just put some bulk and muscle on him, and Charlie will be the one that does it. Joseph Duarte covers University of Houston. He is next from the Houston Chronicle. This is 365 Sports.
The Texas size selection's back at Richard Carr. Over 150 vehicles on the lot, ready to drive home today. That includes dozens of Sierra trucks. Right now, qualified buyers can save thousands on new 2023 GMC Sierra SLT 1500s and get 2.9% financing on new 2023 GMC Sierra trucks. You can see dealer for details, and when you contact the dealership over there at Richard Carr Motors, you will be talking to the people that you can count on, the people that I've counted on. It's a place where whether you're looking to buy new, you're looking to buy pre-owned, or you're looking to just get what you're already driving fixed up and right for the road, they can accommodate you, whichever you're trying to accomplish. So right now, dozens of Sierra trucks on the lot if you're looking to buy new. If you're looking for the SUVs out of the new market, they've got the 2023 Buick Envisions. Qualified buyers can get lease payments with $5,000 down cash or trade at $269 per month. Save thousands on a purchase. If you're looking to go the pre-owned route, they've got hundreds of cars and trucks in stock, many under $20,000, affordable, thoroughly inspected, ready to finance. If you're looking to just drive your vehicle a little while longer, their award-winning service department standing by to keep you on the road. Go to the website, richardcar.com, and you can see their service specials to set up an appointment for quick and reliable repair. So those are your options, and you can get into more of the details if you contact good folks like Donnie over there at Richard Carr Motors. But looking to buy new, looking to buy pre-owned, looking to just keep driving what you've been driving, they are the people you can count on. For over 23 years in Central Texas, they built a reputation for your automotive needs as the go-to spot here in the area, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcar.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
This is the soundtrack of life at Baylor.
There's a spark in your heart and a fire that's in your eyes.
If you're ready to take a big step toward a bright future, tap the banner below to check out the music video for a glimpse of life at Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are
are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Joseph Duarte covers the University of Houston athletics in many different ways, and the Cougars, Kelvin Sampson and company, this thought that, what's going to happen, Sasser, et cetera. Well, they blew off the doors to get themselves into the Sweet 16 after a heck of a performance over the weekend, and Joseph joins us now on 365 Sports. Did everyone, if there were a few nervous Nellies, kind of settle down after how they played this weekend?
Probably after halftime of that Auburn game. You're down 10 and your 2-star guards are dealing with injuries, and you're not quite sure what the next 20 minutes are going to hold. But if you didn't get it together, you were going home. But if there were any doubt, I think that last 20 minutes, especially on the defensive end, what they did, good grief, 4 field goals by Auburn, and it was dominating. So I think with the week here, or a little bit less to rest and recover, Houston's got to be feeling pretty good right now going into the second weekend of the tournament.
Was Sasser's injury maybe made worse by the fact that he left that game, and then Northern Kentucky made the run that they did, and they just kind of rolled the dice, or is it still something they're going to be concerned about here in the coming weeks?
Well, it didn't get any worse in terms of him hurting it. He felt a little, twinge, and it's kind of one of those, hey, let's be careful. It just maybe felt funny, and let's take that time off, and that's what they did. And of course, you start to wonder when Northern Kentucky made that run, and then they kept it pretty close, second guessing, all that kind of stuff. But they felt good about the injury after that game, and then in the days between the first and second round, he went through treatment, and he actually told us, look, there's going to be pain. It's going to linger, probably not going to go away the rest of the tournament, but it's manageable, and there's no damage, there's no structural tear or anything like that, and it's just gonna be managing it from this point on. But certainly having him play as much as he did in the second round, and really it wasn't the groin injury that kept him out. It was the 4 fouls in the Auburn game, but they needed somebody to step up out of their guards, and that happened to be Tremont March. They're calling him T March now instead of T Mark, so he lived up to his March nickname when they needed it most.
Got to be some NIL there somewhere. T March, get a little NIL going. No, but Kelvin Sampson, doing a tremendous job as always, and always up for National Coach of the Year once again. Just kind of how would you summarize and describe the efforts he's put in and the way he's handled this particular roster and gotten them where they are, despite, here and over the course of the season, but here recently some issues with health and just other things to overcome?
Well, you look at last year, and he didn't have Mark or Sasser, and he gets them to the Elite Eight, and you wonder what can he do to top that. And I was in the media show going to the game the other day, and I kept hearing a lot of people talk about, this could be the next number one that gets sent home. And I'm thinking to myself, there's one thing you can count on about Kelvin Sampson. He's not going to have 2 bad games in a row. That just doesn't happen. So I felt going in, even with everything that they had going on, that they were going to find somehow, some way to win that game and get back to another Sweet 16. And that's the Kelvin factor. I mean, he will game plan you to death. He will somehow put together a plan defensively that just takes teams out, and it's amazing. I mean, this guy. I mean, I remember when he got here in 2014 and how bad things were here. And by the next year, they're in the NIT and then another NIT, and then they go on this current run of NCAA tournament appearances. But, this has to be up there. They were a high preseason pick, and they've maintained that all year. They've been number one. Now they're a number one seed. He's just taking them to new heights, and they're 1 weekend away from the ultimate, and that's playing in a Final Four in their hometown. And I think the way that the tournament's gone with two number ones out, I mean, this is anybody's tournament. I mean, it's anybody can win it, and I think you have to put them and Alabama at the head of the class right now for the two teams that could end up in the championship game.
There was a tweet from Sean Farnham about, of the remaining Sweet 16 teams, what are their records against anyone else who's a Sweet 16 team? And there's like 4 schools that have not played anybody. And we know about Houston and Quad 1 and all that. But they did play Alabama straight up. That's the only common denominator among anybody else in the Sweet 16 in Houston. But they played them straight up. So it's even their conference sometimes doesn't allow them to have, like you see perhaps in the SEC or the Big 12. But there's no doubt that when Houston gets inside the Big 12, they expect this same kind of success, don't they?
They do, and I think that's part of what they've done in the past. They know that the American is not going to give them a lot of opportunities to get those meaningful late season games, those Quad 1 games. So Kelvin's loaded it up in recent years. They've had home and homes with Alabama. They've had home and homes of Virginia. They've gone to Oregon. They've played Arkansas. They've gone down the list, and they've tried to add some. They even tried to get North Carolina recently before all the coaching changes that they've had. So they're battle tested. I mean, and then I guess the best game in the conference would be Memphis, the 2 times that you play them. But that's what it's all designed for is this time of year. And that Alabama game that they had on December 10th, Houston was up 15 in the second half and ended up losing. So, they've shown that they can hang with Alabama. I got to watch them, and they were in the other part of that regional in Birmingham this weekend, and they look really good. And if they get Brandon Miller healthy and some of the other guys, the way they were hitting the threes, especially in that first game, that could be a really interesting championship game. But you'd have to think that Houston playing with the home crowd, that they will be the favorites. But they certainly have played a tough schedule to this point to get them ready for the Sweet 16 and beyond.
Well, Joseph, of all the parts of the bracket, Houston, after the first weekend, it went as chalk as it can go, save for a 5 beating a 4, which is pretty much chalk anyway. There's not much of a dividing line between that. It's 1, 2, 3, 5 left in their region. So they've got the toughest road to go.
Yeah, that one, the Midwest stayed pretty much the form. You look at some of the other ones that have a Florida Atlantic or a Princeton. I think the other big matchup will be, possibly UCLA and Gonzaga in the West. But even then, you have UConn and Arkansas, so that could go any number of ways. But that it's been a tournament. Once you saw Purdue go down, and then the big one with Kansas falling, you knew that this was going to be one of those years that you get maybe two number ones to Houston. At this point, maybe you get one. Nothing is out of bounds right now, but I think that's what makes this fun and exciting. And you should just see the when they were showing the scores during the games in Birmingham, just the reaction of people, because if you filled out a bracket, we're all done. We're all toast at this point. But that's what makes this fun. And that's what, gives the underdog and the Cinderella an opportunity to win it.
Joseph, what are your early thoughts on Miami coming up on Friday?
That's going to be it's kind of a contrast in styles. They like to move the ball. They like to do stuff in transition. Houston a little bit better, or likes to slow it down in the half court. I think that'll be interesting. Miami had a really good offensive rebounding game last night against Indiana. That's one of Houston's strengths. And then you look at the guards that roll out. They've got the ACC Player of the Year and Isaiah Wong. Houston matches up with Marcus Sasser. They've got Nigel Pack. At one of the other guards, Houston has Jamal Shedd. So I think it's a really fascinating Sweet 16. I think Houston pulls this one out, and you know what that's going to lead up to? The talk of, are we going to see a Texas versus Houston Elite Eight? And, boy, that would be a crazy atmosphere with one of those teams. One of those teams. We didn't get Texas and Texas A&M in the second round, so we should probably get Houston and Texas in the Elite Eight for a spot in the Final Four.
Well, that'll just get everyone ready for next football season, right? For the game that's going to be in Houston.
Yeah, it'll be in Houston in October. So why not get a jump on it? Houston's wanted to play the Longhorns for as long as I can remember, and you got them on the football schedule at least once next year, and you got them in basketball 2 times. So why not get this party started a little early?
Joseph, the spring drill started, I believe, for Dana Holgerson and company back at the end of February.
Right.
Just have you had a chance to kind of sneak around, get a little feel for how things are going almost a month later?
I haven't, just because I've been on the road with the conference tournament. But I can tell you, this is an important one for them, and there's several things that they have to look at, namely. Everybody thinks that Donovan Smith will be the quarterback. He's the transfer from Texas Tech. So that's something that they're going through. And really the other big storyline is Alton McCaskill and how is his health. He's not doing much of anything in the spring. They want to get him ready for the season. But having him back in the backfield after the freshman year that he had will be huge for them. And then it's replacing Tank Dell at receiver. But, they've had some guys hit the transfer portal from the offensive line that they didn't expect. So that's another issue that, that they've sort of had been confronted with in the spring. But, the next couple of weeks, it's weird. It overlaps so much with what basketball is doing right now that about 3 days after the championship game is when Houston will have its football spring game. So there's not a lot of chances to get over there. But just from what I've been hearing and talking with people, they haven't had any major setbacks, anything like that. So it's been a pretty good spring altogether. Dana Holgerson, of course, making some headlines with his interview with The Athletic, discussing his hot seat or lack of it. So that's probably been the biggest news to come out of Houston football this spring.
I had the ain't no bleeping hot seat all queued up, ready to go, but you mentioned it there. So yeah, that was interesting comments, and that was Dana Holgerson right there, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty much, there's no filter with Dana. And, we talked to some people during the season, and there was some talk of what Houston could do if things didn't get better. And, we've been told that he would get at least 1 year in the Big 12. So I'm not sure who Dana's talking to versus who we're talking to. But at some point, if they do struggle in their first year in the Big 12, I think there will be some pressure, and there'll be some calls to make a change. But certainly going into the Big 12, knowing the experience he has there and the history, they felt like he was the guy to take him into that first year. But depending on how things go, and it's a tough stretch for Houston in their first year with the teams that they have lined up. So, I don't know what it'll take, if it'll be a 6-6. They fire coaches here for 8-4, according to the school president from a few years ago. If it's not hot, it's warm, and I'd rather it be cold if I'm him versus warm or hot.
How much does the clout come from when it comes to Fertitta? When it comes to things like this, if he gets bothered or he gets annoyed, how much of that is an influence?
Well, these are his hires. Dana Holgerson, was his hire. It was sort of his hand-picked guy, and he's had a couple of these now. And I think for a guy like Tillman Fertitta, who's as successful as he is, and has his hands in many things, not just the business ventures, but with the Rockets ownership. It doesn't look good if his handpicked guy doesn't perform or doesn't fare well. I'm not sure if at the end of the day, how quickly he will be to write that check. I've been told that, the buyout isn't as big of an issue as people would make it out, to where somebody like Fertitta would, if necessary, write it. But I think the hope is that they can right this ship and have a good year, so that they're not having to, because this is where Houston gets into problems. So when they start changing coaches as much as they have, and it's been a revolving door for many reasons, coaches leaving or just not working out. But I think this would certainly be one that wouldn't look as well in terms of Tillman Fertitta and his involvement at the school if it doesn't work out, because this was his guy.
Hey, Joseph, great stuff. Enjoy the opportunity with this tournament. I know you do. And then eventually we'll have you on, hopefully again sometime towards the end of the spring, to summarize what they've done with Coach Holgorsen. Good luck the rest of the way with the Cougars and Kelvin Sampson. Mack Rhodes is the one who hired him, and I know he's always spoken very highly of Kelvin Sampson during that process. Thanks for your time. Joseph Duarte of the University of Houston covers them for the Houston Chronicle. All right, there's something Paul showed to me over the weekend, a tweet. The conversation during the on-set, which is Gumbel, Kenny Smith, Clark Kellogg, and Barkley.
Well, and this one had Wally Zerbiak. Wally Zerbiak sits in for one of them each
they
day,
rotate.
so they can,
So here's the tweet. Here's what was put up. One of the greatest things ever created was those Uncrustables. And then Clark Kellogg, I keep them stacked in the freezer at home. And then Zerbiak, orange Gatorade is still the best, hands down. Out of all the flavors, orange is the best.
Is that how the conversation went?
Exactly how the
So he's just
conversation
like, orange
went.
Gatorade's the best.
No, he just said it out there. Like,
all right.
They
like
they're
orange
in like,
Gatorade.
I think Clark Kellogg is the one who, or Barkley turned Kellogg on to him.
To Uncrustables.
Yeah, because he's like, he turned me on to Uncrustables, and then Wally Zerbiak just had to say, like, listen, orange Gatorade's the best.
It is amazing what they talk about, and they still do get a lot of analysis or analysis of the games or whatever. So I have one of these with me today, Uncrustables. When did I bring this up to you guys?
A couple months ago, it was very similar, kind of random out of nowhere discussion. You were eating one, you're like, a golf buddy of mine told me about these, and I'm like, where you been?
Pete Futris, who's from Chicago, but he's a great golf friend of mine. He had these one day for a snack in the midway through a round of golf, and I was like, oh. And I couldn't believe them. I'd never heard of them. I had never had one. I love peanut butter and jelly. I don't eat a lot of it. But I bought 2 boxes, the one that's the grape and one that's obviously strawberry, and I take them every time I go play golf. I have 1 or 2 of these in my little Yeti bag. And it was amazing that you brought that up with Barkley on the Uncrustables. In fact, I'm about to have one of them here in just a second.
They're a fantastic little snack. They've been around for quite a while.
They're going to be a new sponsor of the show.
Yeah, they should be. I remember, it is a weird thing, though, that one of the easiest things to make in the world.
A peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
This is the bottled water of snacks.
Yes.
It absolutely is, because, you don't need bottled water. Well, maybe you do. The water in a lot of places is bad. But before, when bottled water came out, we didn't necessarily need it, but we're like, oh, that's pretty cool.
So thanks to Charles Barkley for confirming what I learned about 2 months ago. I remember when I brought this up, Craig goes, yeah, well, I've known about them for a long, long time. I never have bought them. I'd never seen them before.
I don't know that I said that, actually.
Oh, I thought you did. I thought you said you'd heard of them.
No, I've never even had one in my entire life.
You want one right here?
No, I don't.
Seriously.
1995.
Really?
Yeah, they've been around since 1995. And
maybe I did say that because been right. Yeah, they have been around a really long time. That's nearly 30 years ago.
I thought you recognized at least what they were. Garrett, have you ever had one?
Man, I'm not a big peanut butter and jelly person. I'm not touching that.
They're fantastic. It's as good as if you made it at home.
I mean, I believe you. I have faith in you.
You believe me enough where you're not going to. You want part of this one?
He just said he doesn't like peanut butter and jelly.
I know,
Why would he
I know.
like that?
But thanks to my good friend Pete Futris and the Uncrustables that I never even knew existed until 2 months ago.
It's like
Now
thousands of dollars of advertising right here. We're going on like 2 minutes of talking about
Send me
this.
this segment. I'll send it to their PR department.
Oh, I got it.
I do think this. I do think that whoever invented Uncrustables was a stoner, because it seems to be one of those things that's like, you know what, man? You know what we should do? Let's do peanut butter and jelly in a package so you don't have to make it.
Freeze
but
drive them.
No crusts. And then the other guy's like,
Yeah. It's actually a great idea.
It's a great
especially
idea.
when you're feeling like that.
300 calories. It's a great idea. Thank you to Charles Barkley for confirming what I have learned in the last couple of months. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Ted Teague, and the dealership on Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. Right now, the new 2022 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with values of $8,250 plus $500 to first responders, or get 1.9% financing for 72 months from the huge and the best selection you can find of inventory when it comes to Ram trucks. It's Ram Truck Month right now at Allen Samuels. Also, for the teams that are celebrating, as we see this tournament go into week number 2, there's also the Jeep Celebration event at Allen Samuels. Right now, the Grand Cherokee, the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with total values of $5,500 on second and third row options. The 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport right now with $5,000 in total values. All of that at Allen Samuels. Ram Truck Month, Jeep Celebration event. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
So the NCAA women's tournament, second round, Baylor with a remarkable comeback, down 18 to Alabama, came back to win. And they now will get the number 2 seed the number 1 seed, UConn, tonight in the second round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Texas is still involved in other. Iowa State knocked out by the 12 seed Toledo. Paul, thank you for sending me that text and keeping me up with that game.
That 1 hour breakdown you did post game was incredible. I know it was just for your Patreon or whatever.
UConn's the number 2 seed.
Here's all I know, and this is going to make me look bad, but I know that Baylor won. I didn't watch any of it at all. And I probably owe Nikki Collin this because I'll just tell you personally, I enjoy her much more than I did Kim Mulkey to watch them more. But since Mulkey left, I've kind of relinquished my women's basketball watching. Because I don't, and I almost did that because I would run into Kim. And I would have to go to press conference. I'd have to talk to her. But I don't really have a relationship with Nikki, which is unfortunate for me, not for her. She's probably lucky she doesn't. But, yeah, I've not watched the first dribble of a women's basketball game this year.
Are you bragging?
No, I'm not. I'm just admitting to it. Like, I'm not.
Well, I've watched them a little bit. Garrett covers them, of course, and does a great job on the website as well. And they play UConn tonight. They're a very heavy underdog. Number 7 seed Baylor against UConn, the number 2 seed. Last time these two teams played, do you remember what happened?
Yeah.
It was the Dejanay Carrington being hit in the mouth, in the face, and no call. UConn won the game. It was a hell of a game, and I'm not so sure Baylor doesn't go on and win a 4th national title under Kim Mulkey.
It's a little bit more loaded than that, and I also say burying the lead a little bit. I can tell. Didn't watch because they were down 22-4 after the first quarter. They were getting blown out.
No, I said they were down 18, but I didn't know
they were
that.
getting blown out, and Alabama couldn't miss. Baylor couldn't make anything. They couldn't handle the ball. Turnover after turnover after turnover. Couldn't get a stop. And so they were dead to rights. Garrett, I mean, they were dead to rights after that first quarter. It looked like they were – I was wondering, this is going to be so – how bad will this get? Because it looked like they could have lost by 30, and you can imagine what the response would have been to that. But to their credit, man, they came back and won that game, and I had no faith that they were going to do so. I don't have a lot of faith they're going to win tonight, but to get to this point, given the way that first quarter unfolded, kudos to them. They deserve a lot of credit for that, and let's see what they can do. Maybe they got something up their sleeves. It'll be really tough. I'm not getting people's hopes up, but that Alabama win, Garrett, was – pulling victory from the jaws of defeat for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. And I think you got to give a credit to them being resilient and kind of letting the shots keep flowing. I think they did a good job of baiting Alabama to suck inside when Caitlin Bickle or Bella would get the ball, and they just finally started executing from beyond the arc, especially with Jamie Asbury. She finished the night with a career high for Baylor. 7 made three-pointers in the game, which is a tournament record. They hit 14 three-pointers, which is a Baylor record as well. So, yeah, I mean, it was really impressive to watch. And for them to close it out down the stretch, avoid foul trouble without having Dariana Littlepage Buggs, who she injured her fingers in the second quarter of the game. She had them taped up. She wasn't even available in the fourth quarter. and they gutted it out and were able to win. It was really impressive.
It was nice to get into the second round where they lost last year. Remember, was it South Dakota?
State.
South Dakota State, which was kind of like one of those women's basketball Cinderellas. You see more of them. Stanford was beaten by Ole Miss, an 8 seed, yesterday. That hasn't happened, a number 1 seed, I think, for a long, long time. But tonight, Baylor women against UConn. Nikki Collin on place going up against Gino Auriemma and UConn's tradition.
I saw that there's 6 perfect brackets left. I'm sure none of them have us beating UConn. So, I just think it's this idea that what we have to do is prepare and believe, and then own the underdog role because we don't have anything to lose. It's going to be a packed house against a really good team that's expected to win. Haven't looked at the spread. I'm sure it's not close, but I think we have to take the momentum away from how we played 3/4 of the game yesterday. But we got to be better. You can't spot UConn 10 points, let alone 18, and we know that. And that's no disrespect to Alabama because I thought they were fantastic. But this is UConn's home court. So it's as much that as it is. You already feel like when you play on someone else's home court, you got to be 10 points better than them. So you certainly can't spot them points. So I think we have to be ready from the beginning and really be focused on personnel because in one day, you're not going to get all their elbow action stuff done, their isolation stuff, their back screens, you just have to take away the simple things.
All right, that's Nikki Collin, Baylor women's basketball coach, on their game tonight. 8 o'clock is the tip against UConn, and obviously, yes, they are a very heavy underdog in that game. Now, back for a second to the Uncrustables. D. Wayne saying, a fun fact, the Lunchables were invented by a Texas Tech grad. Well, we're not talking about Lunchables, but that's a very popular thing, too.
Then it's my theory of any of the Lunchables, Uncrustables, or whatever. If it's a Texas Tech grad, then, Stoner is even more likely to have happened. So
I'd lean drunk, but that's fine, too.
Yeah, so either way.
Works, yeah.
RBH 2021, those came out 20 years ago. I'd never heard of them. Paxton Munchie Smoky, according to Paul and Craig, that's true. MP Craig, eat the snack. He did not want a piece of it.
Well, he took a bite of peanut butter and then did a live read. Like, I'm just sitting here, we're sitting here talking. Like, the last thing I want in my mouth is peanut butter if I'm trying to speak. But, yeah, I'm just not in the mood for an Uncrustable at the moment. But I'm sure I'll cave at some point.
Arlo 2020, Craig, I'm sorry, 220, must try it. Love peanut butter and jelly.
I have a peanut butter issue in that I love it too much. I mean, I'll eat it. Like if you just left me in the house
on bread
I'll just eat it with a spoon, just right out of it. I love it. So I have to now that I have a fiance who cares about me most days.
Other than Saturday night,
she has to. We're not talking about that.
Yes, we are.
She has to hide it from me.
I know
where it is, but it's in a spot where it's not like in my regular view, so it won't like trigger me and going like, you know what I need 2 gigantic spoonfuls of peanut butter. And I don't get like a little spoon. I get like the big
if you're gonna go
gigantic spoon.
Why are you using a spoon? You got Ritz crackers, you got
it's all too much in the way.
Yeah.
All right. Peanut butter and jelly. What do you grape over strawberry, which is a debate too. Sammy Valena, I hope I said that right. He don't like peanut butter and jelly? Call the FBI. MP, I've tried them. They're amazing. MP, Uncrustables, the official snack of 365 Sports. How many carbs? There's 300 calories. I don't know. I didn't look at the package on the carbs. So a lot of you. A stoner, laughed my ass off. Hadn't heard that one in a long time from Kim Coulter. Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, I don't even know what the term would be nowadays. I haven't kept up with the lingo, but I think that still is pretty universal that you hear that and you kind of know what it's referring to. But, yeah, I don't know how terms have changed over time, but that one still applies.
Jeremy Rogie, how did we get so lazy we can't spread peanut butter and grape jelly between 2 pieces of bread?
Look,
it's an invention.
And here's the thing: you can even buy a thing from the Pampered Chef. I know this because at one point one was gifted to me and I've lost it, where it's like a little circle. You can make your own Uncrustables at your house. The little circle, it's a metal thing.
That's what you do with like gyoza.
And then you like slam the top of it, and then boom, the crusts are gone, and it seals it around the edges just like that.
Yeah, it's a very soft kind of bread. A couple of them said that maybe a little bit too dry. I have not had that type of feeling. Mr. Guy, don't do it, Paul. Fight the urge, brother. Speaking of which, Saturday night, we brought up Baylor losing. We brought up the Kansas loss as well. And you are here today, which means you survived the onslaught of death.
Yeah, it was rough, especially the way that game went. And then to have to
the Kansas game for
the
those
Kansas
not
game.
following
Yeah, the
along.
Kansas lost.
lost
to Arkansas and the crazy coach.
Yeah, that doesn't help things when Eric Musselman is jumping up and down, taking his shirt off.
Let's get back to Saturday night.
No, I mean, yeah, we. It was. I mean, there are things I'm just not going to talk about. But I will say this: I was happy. I was a little bit proud, even though she's sad about it, and I understand because when the national championship reign ends, it ends. But we have a flag out in the flower bed that is a Kansas. There's an FSU flag next to it now, by the way. But we have a flag in the yard.
Is she allowed that?
Yes. That is the Kansas national championship flag. I got that for her after they won a year ago. But she said we need to change out the flag. One, it's faded, and two, they're not the national champions anymore. So
wow,
she is very much like me. This is why we're a good match in that you win or I take the flag down.
Yeah.
And
all right. Well, I got a question for you then. I don't remember because I'd maybe met Amanda twice before Fort Worth and the game with North Carolina and Baylor, followed by the game with Kansas. Was it Creighton?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember her feeling sorry for the Baylor national championship banner having to be taken down after that day. I thought she pretty much enjoyed that Baylor loss.
No, she didn't, and she won't ever. I mean, look, everybody in the Big 12 is her enemy until they're not. But I
think it's great that she wants Kansas State to win it all.
No, I don't think. Well, that they did their part. Kansas fans won't probably tell this to Kansas State fans, but they hate Kentucky more than they don't like you.
It's a blue blood hate.
Yeah, exactly. So yesterday she was rooting for Jerome Tang in Kansas State for maybe the first time ever, but it's because Kansas does not like Kentucky at all because they're in the blue blood club.
Yeah, they are. Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas. Nina Davis. Anyone remember her? Just a quick note. We're talking women's basketball, which, again, there are tournaments going on. One of our favorite people ever. She's been listed by the WBCA as among the 30 under 30 up-and-coming coaches in America.
Yep.
She's at Middle Tennessee State. She is an absolute gem of a person. She was a hell of a player at Baylor, and we watched her grow up. So good for her being on that list with the Women's Basketball Collegiate Association list of 30 on 30. Now, we got a story we need to get to. We haven't talked. We did a little bit with Andy Zimbalist, sports economist. The ESPN, this is from Andrew Marchand in the New York Post. They are about to, next 4 to 6 weeks, there are the possibility that 7,000 jobs will be eliminated across the board.
I think that might be at Disney
overall.
Yes.
But
Disney,
there are many cuts happening to ESPN. And in the story, the only, at least appears to be the only ones who are untouchable, Aikman and Buck, because they had to get Monday Night Football back off the canvas, Stephen A., and then the possibility of perhaps Scott Van Pelt. And I think there was one other name.
Well, they mentioned
on that
Chris
list.
Fowler is in negotiations right now.
He makes 1/8 or
Yeah.
1/5 of what they're paying Buck and or Aikman. So he's a $3 million a year guy, which is great, but he's in a negotiation. Maybe he ends up at 8, 9, 10 or whatever. But, I think they want to keep him. However, this is you have a place that's cutting back jobs, and this is also part of what we're seeing with networks and the media buys and being very frugal with their money, because sometimes they spend like it's a bottomless pit. They are still doing.
Sometimes that's what they've been all doing. That's what they've all done. There's like very little return on investment so far, and that's why they're starting to come back. I mean, some of them can just keep spending and will never feel the bottom of it because they're just juggernauts that have limitless amount of money, and they're willing to spend their competitors out of existence because ultimately they'll still survive. But yeah, that's an alarming number. I mean, that's a lot of jobs that are coming off the books there. And we know, too, like, before you go, like, well, everybody else, Amazon has cut thousands of jobs over the last few months. I mean, it seems like every week there's a new Amazon. Facebook's Meta, whatever. They've had thousands of lost jobs. So, yeah, I mean, it's hitting the tech sector pretty dadgum hard right now.
And I just, if you've ever been laid off before, it sucks. It's terrible. And the thing that sucks about layoffs is if you are, say they do of these 7,000 across Disney, just let's pick ESPN gets 2,000 of them, right? So ESPN gets 2,000 layoffs.
They've had 250 and 300. I don't know if they've ever had that many. So let's just say 500.
Let's say they get 500 layoffs at ESPN because Disney's a massive company. But some of those 500 people might be somebody like Chris Fowler who's going to do fine no matter what. But some of those people are also going to be people who are just producers and techs and people in the middle of the road.
Cameramen.
Who, nothing that they did, they didn't make these big, gigantic financial decisions. Part of the reason that people are going to get fired at Disney is because Disney Plus is not profitable yet. That's nothing to do with anything you've done at ESPN. If you're the best producer at ESPN and you get fired because, the Disney Plus subscriptions didn't turn it profitable in a year, or they spent too much on this league or too much on that league, and it all is going to affect that's why Brett Yormark, again, we can go back to that, was smart to get in line, and the Pac-12 is struggling right now. I don't think it's not so much that ESPN knows that the Pac-12 and college football will give them a better number than almost anything they can put on there, even if it's lower ratings at times. It's still a pretty decent number compared to anything else they would have on that Saturday or Friday night time slot. It's just the money's not there.
300 layoffs in 2015. In 2017, 250, including names like Ron Jaworski, Mark Stein, who was an elite NBA columnist, and then Trent Dilfer. And during the 2020, during the height of the pandemic, they let go of 300 employees and chose not to fill another 200. So there have been now about 1,000 if you add all those numbers together. So that's coming down the pipeline in the article by Andrew Marchand in the New York Post from earlier today. Now, go ahead.
Is that leading into something else?
Yeah, that's leading into this as well. In the Sports Business Journal, John Elrond and his newsletter. This is what this is from the newsletter. The Pac-12, to reach the $300 million per year mark to basically match the deal with the Big 12, received from ESPN and Fox Sports. This is according to his report in column, the most likely platform to pay that at this point would be Apple, as they reported last month. To be clear, we're not saying that's happening. But Apple is the company that could potentially reach that number, and adding Pac-12 rights does fit what Apple seemingly is trying to do in sports, but it figures to be an all-Apple deal. There was even a suggestion here that that could be all of what they do, that everything is underneath the streaming window and an umbrella, which I've always thought that there would be a linear TV network, and there most likely, I would think in the end, perhaps there is. But one of the things that they're dealing with right now is that there's a value. What is the value? Apple is like, they're just not going to throw money out, even if they have all the money you would ever want. ESPN's about to go through cutbacks, and so you wonder, with that being the case, are they in any rush to sign any kind of deal when it comes to something else in sports, even though they have content or programming they need to fill? So that's from the Sports Business Journal, and of course, we'll see what happens, what that means with anything, if anything else comes out this week with the Pac-12, their media rights deals, linear and or streaming.
Yeah, I mean, he got Alren got a bit more into it, and he never guaranteed anything. Like you said, he said, to be clear, we're not saying anything is happening, but Apple is the company that could potentially reach that $300 million number. He alludes to them possibly looking back towards, the ESPN ABC tree, but apparently that deal that was originally on the table $31 million per team. Does that sound like a familiar figure?
Yep.
Apparently, according to him, that's no longer available. So if they were, according to him, to return to ESPN, the thought is that they probably would not be able to get that figure back. So you'd be looking at less money there, just putting two and two together. Apple TV is still in the process of kind of trying to figure out what they're doing total. I mean, they spent a bunch of money on MLS. And there is a spot there, as he points out, but he acknowledges he doesn't know where they stand as far as that goes. So they could be having great conversations with Apple for all we know, and they could be announcing some deal. But the part of it, too, is that he mentions that the streaming piece, and if you listen to, Arizona's, was that the athletic director?
President.
That was the president,
President
right?
Robbins.
The president last week, I mean, he basically guaranteed, while also talking out of both sides of his mouth on a couple things, but that was taken, as we know, a certain type of way, and that was what I was talking about with, it all depends on who you ask about any given comment, because the Big 12 folks will say, he left the door open. The Pac-12 folks will start calling you weird buzzwords and tell you that there's no chance in hell, even though the door was left crack open. It absolutely was. I don't care if you say it'll never happen. That was not a this will never happen statement from him, even though it was 99% in that direction. But yeah, there was the PR return volley last week from the Pac-12. I think that was very clearly seen. You saw everybody suddenly puffing their chest out and coming out with public statements. And I know they kind of did that along the way, but this was clearly an effort that was being made collectively to put the Pac-12's message out there. So the ball's in their court, man. You said all you said about what the Big 12 did and Brett Yormark's the boogeyman and all this other stuff. This deal's on nobody but the Pac-12 at this point. So, I'm really still just very curious to see what that looks like. I still feel the same way as all along, that everything's going to pretty much stay the way that it is. But, yeah, at this point, it's not about what Dennis Dodd reported or what little seed was planted. This is all on you. Y'all returned the volley last week. John Canzano, in his column, put out there that Tuesday, tomorrow, could very well be a big day. He pointed to the CEOs are all meeting once again, and it'll be the last time they meet for a few more weeks. He even indicated or hinted, while all under the guise of opinion, of course, that this could possibly be a situation where you hear the expansion side of things first, as far as whether they're adding SMU and San Diego State, and that could precede the TV announcement. But he said Tuesday would be a day to possibly look at. So that's tomorrow. Marchand said what he said today, but also acknowledged that he doesn't really know for sure. So tomorrow should be a very interesting day, because those CEOs will meet, and maybe they come out of there ready to announce that the Aztecs and Mustangs are joining up and that they're going all three-way deal with Apple, Amazon, and ESPN, or perhaps they don't. I don't know, but I'm very much looking forward to whatever comes out of that meeting and the next step that this takes. Again, I think Marchand's column kind of depends on how you look at it, but the thing that was interesting to me was that there were such matter-of-fact comments last week about the number's going to be better than the Big 12, and it won't be majority streaming, and he's kind of conflicting with that. So something will give, and it'll be fascinating to see what that ends up being.
Steve, to me on an email, Aran's article, Marchand Aran in the New York Post, that's Marchand, doesn't bode well, in my opinion, for the Pac. I started being skeptical when the Pac missed the exclusive window. Yormark got the Big 12 deal done. Of course, that was back in the fall. This has gone on far too long for anything good to come out of it. That's not what the narrative we heard, or at least some of the arguments and discussion from a week ago. I don't know what this means in the end.
And if it's an all or nothing Apple thing, because that's what Apple, has the opportunity to do here.
Sure.
They have, you can say, well, that's not what they have with Major League Baseball. Well, that's not what was made available to them.
Right.
What was made available to them with Major League Baseball was what baseball had available. And look, based on what's going on with the RSNs, Apple could sit around and go we could certainly do more because they know where that is. And Friday Night Baseball did really, really well for them. But I wonder, all or nothing, if that's what Apple wants, then that's what Apple's going to get. And Apple can wait. One of the notes on that column is that Apple works on their own time.
Do you see this watch?
Yeah.
This is
That's
a
what I was
nice
saying
watch,
last week, too.
But they have their own watch, and it's on their time.
They can do whatever they want. So if they're they've got a lot of other things, irons in the fire. So they're not beholden to the Pac-12 at all.
Right, and that's what I was saying last week, though, about the panic button, Paul. I was like, why are Twitter users creating a panic to get a deal done when they can simply wait it out? And, that was referred to by the Arizona president of, like, I would prefer, he said in so many words, I would have preferred if we had waited, but I understand that there's this pressure and there's this feeling of wanting to get done and all of that. But, yeah, in theory, they could be more patient with it. And I don't really understand, even if Dennis Dodd's writing an article or John Auerand's writing an article or whoever it may be that you feels, wronging you or is, coming at it from a perspective that's not what you view it as. That doesn't mean that you have to, go to the table to prove them wrong. So if you don't feel like you should be at the table right now, then I guess that they could be more patient. But you pointed out Auerand and his buddy Marchand, also said that it doesn't appear that that they're all that close at the moment. So maybe this is more of a longer waiting game than expected. But, like we have, we've seen, oftentimes if it's not from like Canzano or Wilner, then it's not truthful. So, Canzano pointed to Tuesday as a big day to keep an eye on. So Tuesday's tomorrow, and the CEOs are apparently meeting, and I haven't seen much from his activity today, so I don't know what that means one way or the other. But tomorrow will be interesting just to get a better idea of kind of where we are as far as the timeline goes.
What you're saying is there are certain people, no different than what you see in Congress with red states and blue states, that depending on who writes the article, that means it's true.
Right.
And that's unfortunate because I think most everybody is trying to do their job. I do want to thank John Canzano for using some of our audio from our show last week when we were discussing the values of certain cities and the footprint of the Big 12 compared to the values and the footprints of the Pac-12. And we were, I guess, scolded because we don't know what we're talking about when it comes to the value that if SMU is added to the Pac-12, that brings in the Dallas market because the TV networks or whoever are looking at where you are in SMU in the city of Dallas.
Yeah, that seemed like very cherry-picked, I felt like, because he's not looking at it from the same way we're looking at it. He's right in that the Pac-12 is viewing this as a Dallas thing, and they get Dallas. And they're not worried about the fact that SMU doesn't bring ratings in Dallas, although I've seen a lot of charts that have ratings attached to them. So those suddenly don't matter, but they do. That's another thing that matters but doesn't that I'm very confused by. But it doesn't whatever. It all come out in the wash. But I don't think that we were looking at it the same way he was viewing it. He was viewing it a very specific way. Most of the comments were Paul's comments. We're in Texas. We're looking at it from the SMU has not mattered here at all in 30 years viewpoint. Now, if you want to get into, well, that doesn't mean that they can't bring some. Yeah, of course. Like if you're talking about it from the standpoint of grabbing territory and Dallas, business and growing your operations and all that, yes, that absolutely makes sense. But we weren't talking about it from that standpoint. We were talking about it from a pure interest level. That's why ratings was brought up, and that's why when we talk about SMU, they've had some really great moments. We've had Coach Lashley on the show here recently. Like they're good people. Sonny Dykes did a great job there. You obviously knew Chad Morris when he was there. Tanner Mordecai, we covered him. He was the quarterback there. We gave SMU a lot of love. But we're also in Texas, and we know that they're not viewed that way. Now, could they be if they got a Pac-12 membership? Absolutely. That's why they were brought up in the Big 12 talks. That's why they're being brought up right now. But he was looking at it from a different viewpoint, I feel like, and so I thought that was a little bit of cherry picking, but it doesn't matter. We'll see tomorrow as far as what the CEOs meeting brings, but certainly today is just another little wrinkle in the overall saga that I know a lot of people just want to be over at this point. And that's why I was kind of disappointed when I read what I read today. It's like, oh, you mean it's not ending tomorrow? Like we're not almost at the end?
And again,
we'll see.
One of the reasons I just made that comment that I made about Robbins and SMU, we're going to continue to give love to SMU. I do, part of me does wish they had been in the Big 12 ads just because it's kind of a cool place that most people don't know about, but that's the problem is most people don't really know that much about it because of what happened to them in 1984.
Right.
That killed them until about 10 years ago.
So exactly. So there's a lot going on there, but ultimately there are Like he said a couple things there. SMU would be great because it gets you to Dallas, and that helps you academics, all that. Like
NIL.
Nothing he said about SMU was false, except he had another thing is our goal is, much like Los Angeles is for a lot of our students, is that, and California is for a lot of our students, we want Texas to be.
You're talking about President Robbins.
President Robbins said, we want Texas to be one of those places where we get a lot of our student body from. Well, if that is the case, if that is really a long-term diamond in your strategy, then SMU gets that done a little bit, but if you really want Texas, then you're going to have to go into the conference that has most of the Texas schools. SMU only gets it done a little bit. So, like in the interview that Robbins gave, he said a lot of things, but qualified them. You know, he said a couple.
I think what he was, again, I don't know exactly what he was trying to say. He said it, but I wonder if he was also saying that, listen, we want to stay together. But he also, with a lot of the quotes that he said, based on what I read and following somebody who follows Arizona, that we want to see the numbers. How many times did he say we have to see the numbers just to kind of leave that door open? Everybody can look at however you want to what was said by the presidents of Arizona State and Arizona also.
I think it's fascinating that he can make a comment like that, and then people will argue over whether or not he made that comment, and then decide, well, he didn't really mean that part of it. But all the other stuff that was pro my point of view, he meant that stuff. But that comment that doesn't fit that, well, that was taken out of this. And, like, that's where this whole thing has gotten silly is, like, no, you can absolutely say that, yes, there's a 99.99% chance that nothing changes, but don't pretend like that 0.001 comment was not made. Whether it matters or not, probably not. But that was made, and that does feed into the, well, he did leave it cracked open. The crack might be tiny, but it was a crack. So you can argue over that all you want, but I just felt like with the podcast comments, I think we were looking at it from two different places, and that's all right. So I look forward to his reporting on tomorrow's CEO meeting.
Yeah, TJ Scott, I don't know how anyone can say you guys are wrong. I think you've been very clear that you don't know what's going to happen. We've only reported what we hear. We have guests from every angle possible to give us their perspective, from those who feel like the Pac-12 is going to be fine, to those that feel like they could be in trouble, to those that, you know, for example, today with Andy Zimbalist, to give us an opportunity to hear his view. Different eyeballs. I liked it. A different set of eyes and ears when it comes to what he looks at when it comes to sports economy and what's happening with the Pac-12 and college football. A couple of you trust what Jason Shear is saying. Hey, Jason reporting no deal to put in front of the Pac-12. Again, I don't know. We'll see. It's Tuesday tomorrow. Today's Monday. Ryan Nelson, $2 super chat. Thank you. Shaka has one NCAA tournament win since 2014 when they lost to Axum Jacks, Stephen F. Austin, when SFA had a hell of a team. And they've been pretty good at men's basketball. Didn't make the tournament this year.
All right. It's funny enough we're talking about this because Dennis Dodd from Utah President Taylor Randall, and I saw this earlier, but now I'm actually seeing more of the quotes. I guess it's starting to spread. Expressing solidarity. I don't think that that's any surprise, and I think that was very much the feeling last week, right? I mean, that was very much the feeling by the end of the week was that the Pac-12 was talking in solidarity and that they were feeling very good about their position. He said, I don't think we see any dire scenarios. And then Dodd says the biggest news on expansion, it could happen together with the TV deal. It could happen separately. So, also that there's potentially a ways to go, still got a ways to go as far as the media rights talk. So maybe Tuesday is not going to be that big of a deal after all, and maybe there's more of this to go. But, they still feel like they're in a good position overall. And, you know, it's all on them now. It's not Brett Yormark, you know, and the big bad boogeyman who's interrupting all of your discussions. It's on the Pac, so let's see what happens.
I do feel like, and Mac Rhodes, I think, will join us tomorrow. He wasn't available last week, traveling, of course, with both men's and women's basketball. But I think I think the Big 12 has more up their sleeve. I think you saw what they're doing with the combine, the NFL combine, with everybody combined. And I still think there's more that he's been kind of quiet. I think he's been working the various channels and maybe a couple of other things. Nothing major, nothing like $40 million, but little opportunities for the Big 12 to continue to add to the mix of what they're making. and for everybody involved. When we come back, we'll hear from David Hellman, Fox Sports, the Cowboys in the trade, picking up Brandon Cooks last week, Stephon Gilmore, and more. And this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. I went by there earlier today to go pick up some Norwegian salmon fillets. They're very, very good, very fresh. And so I went by there, and I didn't notice that the name was on the package the way that normally, because it would actually say Norwegian salmon. Well, this is how much I'm obviously not very good with the world map. It said Atlantic salmon. Well, that's the same thing. It just didn't say Norway on it, so I got myself 2 or 3, I think it was 4 fillets, Norwegian salmon fillets, to have at some particular point. They're butcher shop with pork, poultry, beef, and seafood. The bakery that's constantly churning out fresh baked bread, fresh baked kolaches, and sweets and treats, and so much more. Here's what they have. If you ever had you hear me talk about a bone-in ribeye, and then there is the Viking version, the tomahawk ribeye, $16.50 a pound, available. St. Louis and pork spare ribs, $2.75 or $2.20 a pound. Baby back pork ribs at $2.25 a pound. Chicken drumsticks on sale for 79 cents a pound. Snow crab and king crab, I saw them in the holder. The king crab, massive, $40 a pound, and the jalapeno cheese pork links at $3.50 a pound. Don't forget, up until 6 o'clock Wednesday, when they close their doors on Wednesday, you can order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish. Last week at $3.50 a pound. You have until Wednesday at 6, and if you get it in the order, you can pick it up anytime after Friday after 4 o'clock on Friday, or while they're open on Saturday. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
Cowboys have been busy. Fans at times frustrated because of free agency, whatever else, but Stephon Gilmore, and then the Brandon Cooks news drops over the weekend, a trade with the Texans. They wanted to get him last year, but they get him for this year. David Hellman, Fox Sports, joins us. David, which is more impressive, the trade for Cooks or the one for Gilmore?
I guess I would say the trade for Cooks, just because it was more salary to take on. Even with Houston taking some of the salary, it was a more expensive acquisition. And it came just a few days after they had already done a trade like this. So to swing a trade for a quality cornerback and not spend too much time patting yourself on the back and to go out and get another quality starter just 3 or 4 days later, very impressive. But I mean, in totality, I think it's about as impressive a thing as they've done in free agency in the last decade. So give them plenty of credit for both.
They've been aggressive yet efficient. They haven't been crazy with things. It's taken them maybe a long time to figure that strategy out.
Yeah, I'm just going to take credit for it. I don't care if that's true or not. This is what I've been asking them to do for 6 or 7 years. Like, you don't have to, set the market in guarantees or give out the biggest contract to make smart free agency moves. This is what smart teams do all the time. In a league with this much injury history and in a league where so much of the workforce is below the age of 25, there are always quality players that can be had for low cost. This is not new. Like, the Cowboys aren't doing anything cutting edge. They're doing something that good teams have been doing for half a decade or more. So whether it was listening to me or any of the dozens of other people that have talked about it, or, even if they came to the conclusion on their own, whatever, but it's nice to see them get on board with what I think is the smartest team building philosophy in the league right now.
Well, until a year ago, all of the stuff you worked on was housed on their website, so they could find it anytime that they wanted to. Therefore, them in the archives.
Yeah, Will McClay came into a meeting one time and said, "I need you guys to listen to this," and it was you. And
I would love for that to be true, but even I'm not that much of a narcissist.
David, how do you think that, especially with cornerback and wide receiver now starter-wise filled, how do you think this affects their early round strategy when it comes to drafting those positions? Because it doesn't, based on the length of time they have Gilmore and Cooks, really negate the fact they could take those positions, but they don't necessarily have to.
Right. I mean, it's the biggest cliche because it's not really very true. Like, the whole best player available thing, everybody says it. Very few mean it, because, again, everybody's trying to win. Everybody's got their job on the line. Like, ironically, the Cowboys don't, so they have a little bit less pressure than everybody else. But, like, everybody in the league is facing pressure to win in 1 or 2 years, or they won't have a job anymore. So, best player available is largely a myth, but that's the beauty of doing this kind of work is there shouldn't be a ton of pressure on them to draft anyone. Like, yeah, you're right. They could still use a cornerback because Gilmore's only under contract for 1 year, and the guys behind him haven't really done a ton to impress. They could still use a receiver because Brandon Cooks' guarantees are over, and they could cut him next year. But you don't have to force it. I mean, if the board doesn't fall your way, you move on to the next position. And so that should be really exciting because we know the Cowboys draft well, and the Cowboys draft even better when they're not feeling the pressure to address a certain position. And really, for my money, there's not a single position on their roster that they have to come out of the draft with. Maybe running back, just from a pure body standpoint, like they only have 2 on the roster right now. But even then, there are guys you could sign in free agency. There's always running backs available. yeah, it should make for an exciting draft, just knowing that the board should be wide open.
So they made these trades, and do you feel like it's not that they haven't wanted or tried to win, but is this different because the NFC appears to be such a wide open field of not a great team that's there?
Well, you know what's funny, and I'll be honest, I allowed myself to forget this because you get wrapped up in the pressure of the season and the playoff race. But, like, I said last year around this time is like, well, maybe, you know, they're never going to say this publicly, but it feels like the Cowboys are doing a soft reset. You know, like they traded Amari Cooper, which was a big unwieldy contract. They cut Lyle Collins, which was a big unwieldy contract. They restructured DeMarcus Lawrence, which was another one. And everybody agreed, like everyone in the world was like, the Cowboys roster is worse now than it was in 2021. And like I said, you get wrapped up in the playoff chase, but, you know, in their mind, maybe they were saying, well, we can still compete for a playoffs with this team and we can get better in 2023. And so I don't know. I doubt that they're doing any of this because Aaron Rodgers is about to leave the NFC or because Tom Brady retired. I don't think teams really operate that way. I think you're always, for the most part, with the exception of like when a team really pushes all their chips in, like maybe the Rams did, you know, I think teams tend to operate more in like a 2 or 3 year window than like 1 year. And I would argue nothing the Cowboys have done to this point is pushing their chips in. You know, these are like minor trades for contracts that will be easy to get away from. But yeah, like I said, I think their salary cap is in a little bit of a healthier place right now than it was last year. And shoot, if they're smart enough to extend Dak Prescott, it could be in even better shape heading into next season. So, yeah, I don't know what that means for the upcoming season, but they certainly seem like they're in a very healthy spot to contend here for the next at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't know that, like, you know, they can't predict that Aaron Rodgers is going to go where or, you know, what Tom Brady's going to do. They just have to capitalize on the situation that the world around him has come to, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And yeah, like if you're not aggressively trying to get better right now, then when are you going to do it? Where, I mean, the Eagles are the biggest competition in the NFC, and they're dealing with a lot of attrition from a Super Bowl season. And I guess you would throw the 49ers in there, although the most important position in the game is a giant question mark for them. So, yeah, I mean, like, I hate saying stuff like this because it's the exact, like, you know, it's the classic Cowboys hype machine where we get excited about the Cowboys despite 30 years of history that suggests that we shouldn't. But, like, by the time the draft is over and everybody's had a chance to add a new rookie class, there's only going to be 1 or 2 teams in the NFC that you could argue have better rosters than the Cowboys. I mean, like I said, the Eagles, probably the 49ers, and this sounds crazy, but maybe I'll throw Detroit in there because it looks like they're building something. But, yeah, like, I mean, the Cowboys are going to head into this season as one of the 2 or 3 best rosters in the NFC. Now's the time to kind of capitalize on that.
David, what are your thoughts on what appears to be imminent Washington and Dan Snyder going to sell the team, and what a breath of fresh air that might mean to that city and fan base?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not super educated on the topic. I only know the basics, but I mean, it would be easy to argue that that's the most pathetic franchise in the league over the last 20, you know, right around the time from when Daniel Snyder bought it, basically. You know, it's sad how, you know, like I think we've talked about this before, Smokey. Like I'm 34, so I'm definitely not as young as I used to be, and I have no memory of Washington even being decent. You know, we give the Cowboys a lot of crap, but I mean, the Cowboys have at least, you know, the Cowboys are usually pretty good. Like they haven't gotten over the hump, but they've made the playoffs plenty, and they've had some pretty good teams. But Washington, you know, since that 91 season, I guess 2012 is the closest they've come to being remotely interesting or functional.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, if the sale goes through and they get a non-toxic, forward-thinking owner who wants to win in there, I think that would be great. Because even with the name change and everything, like if Washington gets consistently good again, I know that market is dying for success, and I think it would be wonderful for the league if they could kind of get that franchise out from under that cloud.
So it would be wonderful for me because I was a fan of them from the time I was like 5 years old. It's been, like you said, it's been a barren wasteland with an oasis of RG3, and even they screwed that up as well. David, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.
David Hellman, FoxSports.com with us on 365 Sports. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5, and this is 365 Sports.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:45. Or is it 5:55? Either way, it's the Top 5.
Top 5 things to recap where the Pac-12 is.
Make sure you do your due diligence here, Paul.
I know.
Anything.
I'm just recapping everything that's happened that's been publicly stated. So last week we heard that the deal was close, but I think you can say close is a relative term because they feel it's closer than it has been, but there are things that are going around that are not going to be confirmed until the deal is done, but saying the deal is close is relative. And who that deal is with, we don't know. But as far as the media deal goes, close is relative. Like, could it be a month from now? Maybe. Could it be 6 months from now? And then we hear today, just now, from the Utah president, is that there's still some ways to go on the media agreement. There's still some time, so you're not going to hear that right away. But again, what does close mean? That's what I'm curious about.
Close is a lot closer than they were when USC and UCLA decided they were going to, the announcement
But
was
that's
coming.
also about the passage of time as well, not necessarily,
Yeah,
I
I
was
guess
joking.
close could be like, hey, we've got our networks, but we don't have a dollar figure. Close could be you have a dollar figure and the networks, but you don't have like the layout of how that would work. So, yeah, I mean, that's why, like I said, tomorrow could, not should, but could be interesting based off what John Canzano pointed to last week with the CEO's meeting. If anything, they will exchange information. So that should bring them a step closer in theory to where they are. But, yeah, how many more steps do they have? I don't know that anybody knows right now.
Yep. Number 4, everyone is committed unless the deal is bad. But they don't expect the deal to be bad. Everybody's left their door open, so to speak. Look.
What's everyone?
The Pac-12, everyone who's spoken about
it.
Okay. Everyone who's spoken about it, all the ADs and presidents in the Pac-12 has spoken about it and said, look, they're committed. And Utah, I think, is an interesting example here because they have no motivation to join the Big 12. Look, there's not like the Big 12 has been great or the Pac-12 has been great for them, but they've also been very clear about when they make statements not to go scorched earth so that they're like, oh, really? You know what? Oregon State was much nicer to us, in this whole deal. So that's where that kind of is. But it is interesting to see that everybody has, and they should, has left the door open at least slightly, especially President Robbins at Arizona really did leave that door open and said, look, we've got to see the deal first before any of those things are even discussed in a real sense.
Yeah, it's a unique mix because, really – Cal and Stanford are not even a part of the conversation really in any way, shape, or form. Oregon and Washington, not really either at all. They have, to my knowledge, not really said much of anything. I know Oregon just hired the new president. I know people still talk about the Big Ten, but, there's not any smoke in that area, at all. It doesn't appear, at least, or if there is, it's very small. We're not even seeing it just yet. But,
Go ahead.
But it appears like they're just like, hey, we're not going anywhere, so we're here. But they're not really trumpeting and towing the line with everybody. They're just there. Stanford and UCLA or Cal, we know they're not going anywhere, so they're just kind of there. It doesn't really matter what they have to say on it, quite frankly. And so that leaves Oregon and Washington State. They're in the best spot they could possibly imagine, so they don't want to go. We've already established nobody wants to go anywywhere. But, yeah, we've now heard from, I think, almost all the four corner schools, as people
and
refer to them.
Washington State, he came out.
Yeah, he did. But I don't really know what their options would be anyways. But, yes, so they have. You're right.
You would think their best option is that Washington and Oregon, for Oregon State and Washington State, remain intact.
Yeah, I just don't think that they're going anywhere. So, I'm not even considering that. I'm only considering the Big 12 part of this. So it's that four corner schools, and, yeah, everybody's on board. Everybody wants to see what that deal is, and I think that that's been established. And, hey, so long as it's in the ballpark, then everybody's going to be fine and singing Kumbaya. But, if something drastic – I think everybody's just refusing – they're supporting as best they can, but nobody's willing to say never. That's the best way to put it. Nobody's willing to say never, or nobody's willing to say never because you never say never. But outside of that, I do feel like they've been as strongly worded as they can without saying, oh, that'll never happen, because you just never say never.
I think if you took the four corner schools in the matter of who might be looking off to the side, Colorado and Arizona would be probably somewhere 1A and 1A, 1B. And then after that, I don't know. I really don't know. Utah's kind of made it clear. And then in Arizona State, they don't seem to be in it. I still wonder if Oregon and Washington, for the most part, have been quiet because do they have the most to lose?
No, you could argue an expanded playoff.
But they always are going to have
gain.
somewhere to fall. Not fall, but they will be picked up by somebody. It may not be who they want it to be.
Yeah.
No, they won't. Where are they going?
What if... So if the conference deal is just not enough, you don't think they would all of a sudden change how they think of themselves with the Big 12?
I don't think that they would bow down to the Big 12. I mean, unless it was like
Not bow
so
down to them.
horrifically bad that you had absolutely no choice. But there is nothing to indicate that it will be that bad. Like, I mean, it would.
Yeah.
Like, let's establish this would have to be a really bad deal.
They'd have to be getting the AAC deal.
Yes,
like, that's what they'd have to be getting.
Like, we got to be talking like $20 million short.
Just
Like, and so
something that's,
that's not going to happen.
mind-blowing.
And so that's not going to happen. So that's all been wishful thinking that, like, oh, the deal's going to be so bad that it da-da-da-da. Like, to pull Oregon and Washington away when they're going to be the kings of that thing for the most part, they're going to have an easy path to the playoff. I don't know why they would, you know, and the Big Ten thing just seems like a pipe dream at this point. So, yeah, I don't think they're going anywhere.
Number 3, SMU and San Diego State are still possible. And let's go back to number 2 real quick because he's kind of tying together. Expansion and TV announcements would come separately. Or now we found out that maybe they could come at the same time.
Well,
but
I thought, based on what I read with the article, with Canzano, was that the expansion might be announced before the TV deal.
Yeah, that was him.
Yes,
just talking, but yeah.
Yeah, so like, but, you know, that they could all be together, could not. And
well, what did the Big 12 do? They expanded first.
Yeah.
And then a year later announced the TV deal, right?
Well, but they also had that timetable to
Sure.
do that, is where the Pac-12's timetable, as we've gone over, is at least shorter in the fact that it ends at the end of this calendar year.
Yeah.
So in 2024, they don't have one. So the deadline is technically December 31st, but they obviously like to get it done before they're in the bowl season. And number 1.
And, hey, I mentioned, like, you know, we talk about it a lot, but, like, I don't just look at this from what could happen for the Big 12. I'm very curious. Like, if SMU and San Diego State join the Pac-12, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Like, that's a pretty big deal, and especially when you grew up in 2 hours away from SMU and you know their history and just how they've sort of been viewed, that would be a big deal for them. So, yeah, I think that, you know, especially when you look at the fact that probably nothing's happening major that's on the horizon. I mean, the ACC thing is still years out at this point, even if, you know, people are rattling cages. So this is kind of that, like, if you're SMU or San Diego State, you better get in. You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of your sliver here.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of teams who had a sliver and they just weren't quite ready, and now they're out on the outside looking in.
Exactly. So, like, in order to avoid, you know, feeling like Memphis does or like a Boise might, then, yeah, you were really crossing your fingers and hoping this is your big breakthrough because there's no guaranteeing that there's going to be more pulling from the G5s, and I don't mean that as a derogatory term, obviously, but there's no guarantee there's going to be a bunch of pulling up the way we've seen these last couple of years.
And San Diego State's men's basketball team is kind of busy.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
And number 1, there's still not a deal. There's still not one.
That can't be argued.
Yeah, they can't be argued. But just recapping, that everything you've heard, there's still not one, and it appears off in the distance, but close. But again, that's a relative term.
But maybe tomorrow.
But maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
But maybe not. Maybe a long way away. This is got to be exhausting if you're just a fan of one of those schools that's not in the Twitter mob that just wants to know who we playing.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen?
What is our future? Who's in our conference? Yeah.
Like,
Or
if
what conference
if
are
my
we
kid's
in?
a freshman in 2026,
Yeah.
what's parents' weekend? Is it going to be one I'm going to like to go to?
Yeah.
You know,
I think everybody's dealing with that sort of fatigue to some point. I think that's why you saw the Pac folks kind of reaching their breaking point the other day. It was like, all right, we're tired of this. And it's even with the comment of like, well, we could have stayed more patient, but everybody's kind of feeling this like we got to get it done. And I compared it to the Big 12 agreeing to their exit deal with Oklahoma and Texas. They could have held out. They could have racked up millions of dollars in lawyers' fees, right, and drugged this thing on out to get every single last penny that they wanted from Oklahoma and Texas, but probably would have spent what they would have gotten back, right? But everybody's like, you know what, damn it, let's just move on from this. Like, let's just get it done. They're going to be leaving. We all know it's official and be done with it. I think that's how everybody feels with this is like, whatever happens, happens, but let's all just get it done with and move along. And whether that's for the betterment of them or not, you know, time will tell. But, yeah, there's definitely some fatigue, and it's understandable. And also, it's understandable even if you don't have a dog in the fight. There's some people just find the topic interesting, and it's just an interesting topic.
I'm glad you brought that up because there's that replay, right, Paul? And there was this one guy, Daniel Benuenos or whatever, that kept saying, what are you guys going to do? You know, you're always discussing realignment. We would be idiots if we didn't. It's absolutely been on the front center burner for almost 3 years.
Okay.
It really almost for the decade or so.
What was Rush Limbaugh going to do when Bill Clinton didn't get elected? What was, I mean, when he was out of office?
It's not so much about the Pac-12. It's about college athletics landscape.
Yes.
I mean, they're on the clock. That's it.
Exactly.
Just like the Big 12 was.
And I explained this with, why didn't you talk about the Big 10 the same way? It's because it's an entirely different situation. It was an entirely different situation with the SEC. It's an entirely different situation with the Big 12. It's an entirely different situation with the ACC. And they're all their own unique stories. That's exactly why. It's not a conspiracy theory here. But I'll tell you what we'll talk about. We'll talk about all the things we talked about for the first 2.5 hours of this 3-hour show. I think we'll manage.
For the first 2 and almost 3 years of doing the day we signed on April 6th. By the way, John Oran, Diamond Sports has parted way with their president. They didn't make payments to certain franchises. So that's a story on the regional sports networks that just had an update from Aran from the Sports Business Journal. Okay, Garrett Ross, thank you. Jack McKenzie, our great sponsors. Emery Winter will do his magic. We'll be on at 10:30 tonight, Sports Tonight on the CW. Tomorrow, Garrett, remind me to put up that tweet from the teacher. Try to help raise some money for a teacher up in the Dallas and Fort Worth area. Paul Craig, great to have you back. Monday, back tomorrow. I'm David Smoak. Have a wonderful Monday. We're live 3 to 6 every weekday right here on 365 Sports, and good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business